Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's Farmington School Board meeting. It is November 16th. Would you all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. In attendance tonight, we have myself and Tim in person, Josh and Stan are attending remotely, and Joel will be joining us a little bit later in the meeting. So first thing on our agenda is public participation. We have that through Google Meet. We also have a telephone number here, which is 755-2811, extension 2104. At this point, I see we have Blanche Tanner here, so if you have something, come on up to the microphone. Yep, so people can hear you at home.
Good evening. Blanche Tanner, Memorial Drive. I just want to make a couple comments, and I had some questions. One I think has already been answered by your discussion a minute ago, but anyway. I just want to make it clear, I've not attended a meeting for quite a while, and I just want to make it clear to everyone here and everyone who might be listening that my questions and my comments, I don't have any hidden agenda with anything that I'm asking about. It's just that I like to feel like I have an understanding of topics that are discussed at meetings, comments made, that kind of thing, just to try to be an informed member of this community and taxpayer and all that. So, and I also know that at the meetings I go to, some of you probably know, I tend to ask questions. So I'm not just picking on the school board. I ask questions at the selectmen meeting and budget committee, et cetera. So just want to make that clear to anybody who might be wondering what I'm doing here. I do have a couple questions about the roof project. I hate to beat an issue to death, but I'm interested in, there obviously was a very significant difference between the dollar amounts that was originally for Articles 9 and 10 and what actually came out for the roof of this building and Henry Wilson. So I'm just curious, what was different about the RFP for the current money that you're spending for the roofs and the previous one that made that number so different? Okay. I know there was a comment about COVID, but that's significant. That COVID maybe played some part in that, but what was the difference?
No, I don't believe that's played any part. The biggest significant difference was in the high school. On the last roof repair that was done, which was for about 12,000 square feet, which I believe was half the building, they used a certain material, which is I want to say, if I get the terminology, it was a thermoplastic urethane, or was it TPA or TPU? TPA, which is a different type of roofing material than a standard rubberized EPDM roofing. And when they chose that system, when they went out for the original RFP, they had assistance from the manufacturer to quote. The way it was geared, in my impression, it was kind of soliciting that same type of material for the second repair or repair. When we redid the RFP, we went out and allowed all types of roofing that is used in this area, whether it's a TPA, which is thermoplastic material, a TPU, which is a similar one, and EPDM, which is a rubber membrane, which is what was on there before. So it was written not by a manufacturer, but by somebody we contracted to help us write the spec to go out for more generalized roofing repair. So what that yielded is more bidders and a more competitive process, and we were able to pick from a bigger pool of people that was used to with the materials which are typical around here. Not saying, all with a similar warranty, which was, we required a 20-year minimum warranty, along with assurities similar for municipal work. The Henry Wilson was quoted with, I think the first quote was also geared towards more of a, was written by that same group of people, gearing towards a specific type of material. There was some repairs on that roof that were of that material. I think there were some sections that had that TPU or TPA, 2 sections, but the majority of that roof was EPDM rubber for flat roofs, which is the standard in this area. Not saying it's a standard in every area. Down south, they typically use other materials, a little bit suited for the higher heat area down there, but they also use EPDM. I'm not sure how much different that one was on the scope. I don't know if you remember, Brian.
I never saw the original one. I only saw the second one.
Yeah, so that was the main difference, is that when we redid the scope, that it was more of a open bidding process where roofing contractors could bid any material that met the quality requirements as far as the warranty and other things.
Okay, and how many bids did you get for the jobs? Do you know
8
offhand?
for each one. Well, one got 7, one got 8.
So up to 8 bids?
Yep.
That's good. Now,
And
after,
in the first bid process, I think there was 3. Is that right? 3? Yeah.
that's good, that's good. I'm all for saving money, so I'm not questioning that part. Now, once these roofs are done for the high school and Henry Wilson, is there anything else that has to be done on the roofs, or is that it for a while? Or are there other sections that need to be done?
Yeah.
It will finish the high school.
Finish the high school. There'll be other sections, probably the other at Henry Wilson.
Henry Wilson, okay.
And Valley View,
shingle.
right. But,
That will be in a couple of years.
yeah,
Valley View shingles a couple of years,
well,
approximately,
Well, at least to start looking at what.
to start
we're
looking in a
doing.
couple of years?
what was the, how old is that shingled roof?
The original, so 90,
19 this year.
Okay.
Okay.
So depending on the materials, they could have had a 20 to a 35-year warranty or expected life, so it's something that's certainly closer than further away.
Yeah, I know that from my own roof business. And next topic would be, at the October 28th Budget Committee meeting, Mr. Brown, you mentioned that the budget process was going to be totally different, a totally different process this year than in the past. Can you say a little bit about that and how the process is different than in the past, or what you guys are doing going forward for the budget process?
I think I spent 4 years on the Budget Committee, watched the school budget process. I think one of the biggest things that we've done differently this year is we're trying to start with a bare bones budget of what our needs are versus our wants, and then build upon from there as we go up. Certain things, and again, the board hasn't made the decisions, but as we go through the process, certain things may be in the budget, and certain things that normally would have been in the budget may be in warrant articles, but we're not there yet. It's a different way of looking at the process, if that makes sense.
Yep, it does. And I won't ask about the generator because I heard your discussion a moment ago, so I'll save those questions till later. I had a comment, I guess, mostly about, you had talked a little bit in your last week's meeting about the possibility of doing something with merit salary increases. And I just have a question about that. If and when you decide to go that route, who develops the policy or the procedures for merit pay? Is it the superintendent's office? Is it and I know that the school board would approve that, but who initially develops that procedure or process, that policy?
I would say we would typically ask staff to draft a policy for us to review and approve.
Staff, then school board?
Well, there is a policy committee as well, so it'd probably go from staff to the policy committee to the board.
That could be, that was discussion at the last meeting. How much further it's going to go past that discussion is too early to tell.
Okay.
I think it's certainly something I want to discuss. But whether or not how we would handle it, at the last discussion, you may have heard how, we looked at something like typically on how the town has handled it. As far as the way it's designated a certain pool of money so that they can go to the budget committee and they go through the process of getting approved by town. And then depending on how the employees review shakeout that may, and recommendations that may be past that period. In the past, say, 6 or 7 or 8 years ago, when I was in a Board of Selectmen meeting, as a selectman, they did it differently, and we kind of instituted this way so that we could separate the employee review and compensation out of the budget cycle, because it was just crashing as far as things to get accomplished.
Okay. And my only comment about that is, having been in the business for a while myself, I just would make a general comment that any merit-based policy procedure should be written and administered in a very careful manner, and to assure that personalities are left out of the evaluation process, I think is extremely important. That's just my own personal comment on that. I just have 2 more very quick things, and this next one is really just a comment. I heard your discussion about the possibility of putting the SRO officer and social worker positions maybe into warrant articles or something like that. I guess my only 2 comments about that would simply be that I hope that when those positions are brought before the Budget Committee and the community, that 2 things take place and 2 things are covered. The first thing would be simply the importance of those 2 positions to Farmington children and families. I think that's important. And also, I would like to know, when those positions are discussed, how many, if they are added to Fund 10 without going to special warrant article, how many pennies would those dollar amounts add to the tax rate? If that's something that you guys would know when we get to the budget season and you present it to the Budget Committee and the town as a review. Those would be 2 areas that I'd be interested in hearing about. And the other thing I was curious about, and this has to do with, it was toward the end of the meeting, I think you were talking about, if I understood correctly, there was a technology hardware line or something like that. And Mr. King, you mentioned something about you would like to have some outside eyes look at those requests for technology. And what kind of outside eyes would you be looking? Would you look at other professionals? Would you be looking at?
Yeah, we would reach out to professionals to give us an opinion whether or not the path that we were taking with the improvements made sense to some of the deficiencies that we may have. In the last meeting, there was a presentation by staff for some expenditures out of that newly anticipated revenue that we just took in from the state. And there was several line items there that we just saw at the last meeting saying, okay, and it totaled quite a bit of money.
Right.
It might have been $20,000 with upgrades. And to say, does this make sense? Is this the correct area to put it in? That was just my comment.
Yeah, I was just curious. I figured that was probably it, but I just want to make sure. I want to thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Maybe once a month, maybe we'll try to come and ask my questions. Thanks very much. I appreciate your time.
Okay, thanks, Blanche.
Charlie?
Tim?
Just as a follow-up comment, the Henry Wilson Memorial roof was budgeted at $157,000. The bid came in at $65,000 for a savings of $92,000. The Farmington High School roof was budgeted at $437,000. The bid came in at $127,650 for a savings of $309,350.
Yeah, and to reinstate, the major difference was the first bid really targeted a certain type of material and was put out by the manufacturer, and the second bid, we allowed that material to be quoted, but more of a general a bid scope to have materials that meted the requirements as far as warranty and life of the material.
Saving money is good, so that's all good.
Okay. Moving along, next, we have a new business. We had cooperative soccer with Newt. I assume we got somebody?
I think Eric is here, actually.
Yes, I'm here. Can
Okay.
you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, so what that is looking to enter an agreement with Newt for next fall season to do co-op teams, one being for the boys soccer team, co-op with Newt, and then the other one being as we move the team from varsity to JV, and continue that as a JV girls soccer team co-op. And basically we have a kind of short agreement that I need to submit to the NHIA and the soccer committee before, a year basically before the season before, to allow that to go in. that I just wanted to kind of bring it to the board, get the approval to say yes or we'll go forward with this. My reasons basically are, you know, the role of numbers in our programs right now are a little low. Newt hasn't had a program for a couple of years now that I know of, and it's something that as ADs we talked about for a couple of years now, and kind of want to move forward with it now.
So what do you feel that the benefits to the Farmington students and soccer players is going to be taking this approach?
So it's all in the goal to eventually separate and have our own programs again. It just helps with numbers in the sense of building, because right now we're having to pull up some 8th graders and 7th graders to fill those teams, which, it's good. That's why it's there. But again, for having competitive teams and more age-appropriate teams, this is probably the better approach to building a program to eventually, again, as numbers, as it works, is the more numbers you get, the more commitment, the more, building of a program. That's how the numbers start to grow and people want to be part of it. And that's kind of what the goal is. It's not a long-term thing. It's, the whole goal is to have a short-term plan here to eventually separate.
So this agreement was drafted by Newt High School?
And with me, yes.
The two athletic directors got together and drafted this. I have spoken with the superintendent. Go ahead.
Hold on 1 minute. Hello, hello? Hey, let me see if I can put you on speakerphone. Hold on. Am I going to do this right without hanging up?
Don't hang up yet.
Which one?
Hi, I was just calling in regards to the co-op
Yeah, go ahead.
proposal
Please,
for soccer.
could you
I was
please
just curious,
give us your name and street that you live on?
this is Dawn Weeks and I live at 19 Elm Street.
Okay.
I'm just curious about if we enter into a co-op, does that affect which division we would be participating in at the NHIAA varsity level?
So one of the things that come with being a co-op is you add enrollment numbers and you get placed based on classifications, based on the soccer committee. With that, we would be placed in the next division up.
We would or we wouldn't?
We would for soccer.
We would.
So
For
then
soccer.
I would just like to say that I don't think it's in the best interest of Farmington to participate in a higher division where we could no longer be competitive with the small amount of numbers that Newt would be offering to us in a co-op presentation. Then if you're not winning games, kids don't want to play. We're competitive in our division now. But if we move to the next division, competing against schools with 700-800 kids, we're not going to win games. And I know winning's not important, but it is important for kids' self-esteem to at least be able to be competitive, whether they win or lose.
So what is the league that we play in now? Is there a designation?
We're in the smallest division in each of the sports.
So we would be moving up to the next division, which would be, who would we be playing against in that division? The next division up?
Prospect Mountain is usually in the division above us. Somersworth. I don't know for sure in soccer, but it would take us out of the division with the Newmarkets and the Eppings and the other small community schools.
Okay. Thank you, Don. Hold on a second. I'm going to have Eric answer that. Go ahead. Eric, do you know of any of the schools?
A lot of the teams we face in volleyball currently would be teams that we face in soccer more as. We would go up in a division. There's 4 divisions total in soccer. We're in 4 currently. That would put us in 3. We do have the ability to petition down a division, which again is through a process at the AHI level where we put a petition in to put ourselves down a division. That is a possibility. But yeah, so our teams that we faced initially in the past we wouldn't be facing them the whole time. wouldn't be a case that we wouldn't face any of them, but the tournament we go to at the end of the year would be the Division III soccer tournament.
Now, what division does New currently play in? The Division 4?
They're in 4,
Yeah.
yep.
They're in
So-
4, but they haven't had the numbers to field the team the last few years.
Right, so why wouldn't it make sense to, if we were to do this program with them, the petition to stay in 4, based upon, these were both the towns have been playing, and that the only reason we're doing it is to basically, assist in them being able to play, and also us basically assisting us on our numbers also.
I mean, I would approve. I mean, I would also say that if they can guarantee that we're not going to have to change divisions, I would say it's a great idea. My concern would be that the petition would not be approved, and then the kids would not be in a competitive field. And so, I mean, obviously, I'm just, stating my opinion, and thank you for your time. I really feel it's important that people realize, I coached when we were playing in Division III. It's not an easy task when you have 200 and something kids in your school. It's playing against teams that have 700 kids in their school.
Yeah.
It's just something to take into consideration, so thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Tim?
Yep, and Division III, just to put out there, is not schools with 600-700. It's more schools with that 300 to 400, because it's 4 divisions. At 700, you're looking at Division II schools. So I mean, I agree. Competition might be a little more competitive, but at the really top level of the division. And again, this is us to with our. This year we had 8 high schoolers on the team, 8 male high schoolers on our boys soccer team. We had 2 girls that tried out for the girls team but didn't have the team. We had to play 4 or 5 middle schoolers just to have a team. And to have basically 7th, 8th graders going against seniors, again, whatever division I'm in, it's not going to be competitive typically. So I think it's just a long, it's a kind of approach to just try to get some of those numbers back up, and you can be somewhat competitive. And you can be a lot competitive, with good coaching and good, focus and dedication with the kids. And it's just, yeah.
Hold on a second there. Tim, you had a question?
Get a motion?
Well, I have a question before you, whatever the motion is going to be. Now, you have an athletic committee.
Yep.
Was this brought forward by the committee? Have they had a chance to have an opinion and they feel this is a good idea?
Yeah, I brought to the attention this week that I was going to bring it to the board. This was what I was thinking. They had some opinions on obviously asking questions like, do we have to go up a division? What are the numbers? And they all concurred that obviously the numbers are low and there needs to be some type of movement to help improve it. We didn't make a full recommendation because it was a short part of the agenda that night, but I wanted to let them know and give them some feedback.
Ruth Ellen, is Joel with us yet or no?
I don't know.
I have not seen him on yet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jen. Tim or anyone else from the board?
I'll make a motion that we approve the cooperative soccer agreement with New, conditional upon NHIA approving our petition down to Division 4. We're in Division 4 now, Newt's in Division 4, it makes sense. If we can stay in Division 4, I agree the cooperative agreement makes sense. If not, I think it'll need another look.
Do we have a second? I'll second for discussion. Any discussion, Josh or Stan?
I see the point about keeping in Division 4, but I don't think the approval should hinge on that, because we'll be approving it and then we won't have a team anymore, and so it's going to add to confusion. So I would recommend that we do the combination team, but I wouldn't want to saddle it on only if we get to keep in Division 4.
Okay, Josh?
Oh, dear.
Josh, yeah, your audio's having some trouble. Maybe come back out and go back in.
Is he on helium?
He's got his Daffy Duck button on.
That's the way he normally talks.
Ruth Ellen, you
I have a question, and I don't know if Eric has an answer for
You're trying
this.
to with Josh.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. Good, Josh.
Go ahead, Josh.
I said I liked it. I didn't. I agree with Stan. I don't really see the necessity for the contingency, but I'll vote yes either way.
Okay, Ruth Ellen.
My question was going to be, is having the cooperative, is there a cart before the horse? Can you say we need to have the division lower approval before we are putting forward the cooperative? Will they give it to us in that order, or is it you have to establish the cooperative and then as a cooperative petition to be lower? I'm just checking process.
Yeah, and that's the thing I was thinking about, and I don't know, because this is my first time going through this process. I know right away the first decision that needs to be made is, are we making an agreement, because that needs to happen basically that year in advance. Whereas the petition typically happens in another committee meeting at the NHI level where we bring it forward for petitions. We're in the middle of a classification period, meaning every 2 years we get put in classifications for a division. We're basically going into year 2. I know there is a thing in the application where you still have that ability. I don't know the exact, process if I'm allowed to say yes and then no, because we didn't get to the petition. Now we're going to stay. We're not going to do the co-op in it.
So,
I'd have some answers.
so my
on
question
that.
is, when does this decision have to be made? Is there a deadline?
Not for the co-op, it needs to be decided, basically, yes, it's set by the end of the season, and we've contacted saying we're waiting for a board approval, but the language states that we need to do it before the end of the fall season. So we've already communicated that this is happening, we're just waiting for to get the
So
board
what is
approval.
so what is that date? What is that date?
Well, the fall season has already ended, so.
Fall season's over, so
Well, if the fall season is already over and we're just seeing this presentation, then it's tough to make a decision when we're just presented this and we pose a question and there's no time left. Is that what you're basically saying?
So, Eric, my question is, would they be voting on that before the 1st of December? Does it need to be in by January, or are we already late?
yeah, we're already at the point where I gotta submit it to the committee, of soccer committee. Now that meeting, I don't know when it happens, but yeah, we're at the end point.
Well, for me, I think that the question put forth by the motion is actually somewhat important because it actually spills off to another couple questions. If the motion were to pass, then you would have to have, Newt would have to say, yes, we want to do that, which we don't know the answer to.
I have
They may say, we want to be in Division 3, or they may say, no, we think that's a great idea. We would like to also petition to stay in 4 and do the co-op. Or they could say, we want to be in 3, and we've also should ask this committee if it's even possible to do it at the same time. So, I mean, this motion, if it were to pass the way it's worded, there's a couple contingencies. A contingent that Newt wants to pursue it that way, and then they're going to allow us to do it at the same time.
My understanding from speaking with the Newt superintendent is that they would like to find a way for their students to be able to participate in soccer. Without us, they can't do it right now. And so if we were to say it's contingent on staying Division 4, I think they'd be fine with that. If we said the only way we'll do it is if we go to Division 3, I think they're fine with that. They just want their kids to be able to play soccer. Because they don't have numbers to field a team of their own at all. So I think it really falls with what this board is willing to do. Now, with it coming this late, you may say it's not this year.
Well, the other thing is to say this is let's say if the motion were to pass, it's up to the NHIA to say, well, you didn't meet the time frame and we're not going to consider it, which I don't think, they may be more, they probably wouldn't take that approach, I assume, because their goal is to also have the kids play. This is not something that's, I guess, our fault that it's not before them in a timely manner. It's just the way it's rolled out as far as the discussion. But I do agree with the public comment.
Just approve the plan to have a joint team and let the players and the coaches iron out whether we should be in Division 3 or petition to stay in Division 4, because they have a better judgment on how many kids they have going out and what kind of team they might have and where they might want to play.
Okay, but that's different than a motion, I guess. So Tim, would you accept that as a friendly amendment?
I'll stick with my motion.
So at this point, Tim is sticking with his motion, which is to allow it as long as we stay in Division 4. I don't have any additional discussion. Anyone else with any additional discussion? I understand your point, Stan, but I agree with the concern of the resident that it may make it less, it may diminish our experience here for our soccer players here because they'd be at a less competitive advantage and not be potentially less likely to participate. And that would be a concern for me, for our students. And going in a tougher division, if we're already having trouble getting our numbers, may actually make us getting numbers more difficult. I don't know, Eric, your thoughts on that?
I mean, like I said, we had a hard fought, our team fought really hard this year, but again, it was just with the low numbers and the amount of, middle schoolers on the team, it was a lot of inexperience involved going against some people that were, so even though we were in Division 4, and again, it was still, competitively, they worked hard, but again, we're focusing a lot on that. Are we going to be competitive or not? And I really want to give our program an opportunity to get players involved, more players than just enough. Do we have enough to field the team this year? And when you have that, it's a really bad culture and atmosphere, and it's tough. And I wish I could fix the numbers overnight in the year, but having another school that has people eager to play, that would fulfill some of that have that same type of development. They're not really young, they're the same age, they're going to be going against other teams. Again, just because they might have more kids in their school, but there's still an opportunity to be successful and be competitive. And I would hate to, go back to, all right, we'll have next year, I think we have 6 juniors this year, we have 6 seniors next year, and now we're running into another numbers problem trying to fit a team. And I think I'd rather be safe than sorry again next year when we're barely fielding a team,
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? Not hearing any. All in favor?
Did we have a second? You did second for discussion, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I did.
You did.
Hearing no further, any other discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
So 3-4, 1 opposed, motion passes to enter into a co-op as long as we can stay in Division 4. And Eric, you're just gonna have to try to sell it as best you can with the board.
Mean the NHIA?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Board, yeah. NHIA board. Okay, moving along to the next one, which is winter sports proposal. Eric also doing this one?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Okay, so winter sports proposal, plan is very similar to what the fall was. The team's looking to propose both at the high school level, boys and girls, varsity and JV basketball, along with varsity spirit and unified basketball, and along with the middle school programs as well, boys and girls basketball and spirit. With this proposal, I'm looking to get some guidance in some areas in the sense of board really deciding on if they are to go forward with winter sports, and that's your decision, on what you would like for masking and face covering policies. I wrote something in this proposal, basically similar to what the fall was, because that's what's based off of the Sports Medicine Committee at the NHIA. But basically, my proposal is to have winter sports and go by the NHI dates of, which I did speak of not last one, I think a couple meetings ago, where the skills and drills, basically no contact and separation skills and drills, would start the 30th November. Practices would start December 14th. And games are not to be played till January 11th, which is basically a good month delay in the season. So, other than that, the transportation's gonna have, with the night games, it's not as big a deal, because we don't have to deal with daylight. We have, regional scheduling, same thing that we're looking to do, that we did in the fall, keep it close, keep in mind of, hotspot spotters cases. AD's all in agreement that at any point we could be pulling out and being done for a couple weeks, or something happened, we're done for a while, or for the rest of the season, based on any conditions that's been communicated. And
So the guidelines here, as far as the COVID-19 guidelines, are the same that we've been doing currently?
correct.
As far as attendance, as far as screening, as far as mask requirements, as far as who's allowed to attend, as far as 2 people per player?
Yes.
Yes.
And so I guess my question is are we going to be able to accomplish this cleaning of these arenas with what we have for staffing?
How many games a week are you proposing, Eric?
It's looking like that, two games a week. So it's, we're anywhere from 10 to 12 games, so looking between 6, 5 to 6 home games, typical of what the volleyball season was. And again, the same protocols for cleaning. When we have one side being the bleachers, those are the ones that are going to be cleaned and sanitized after the games.
Well, the whole gym.
Equipment, etc.
Done, but.
So what days would those games be on in the week?
So I haven't finalized the schedule because no one's committing yet until we get a final decision if we're going forward with it. But typical things that we're looking at is possibly a Tuesday, Friday type of week. But nothing's been set in stone or any dates yet.
Larry, come on up to the mic, please. Because right now, are we only cleaning for Saturday games? Or we were for the 500?
500 hasn't started yet.
Hasn't started yet?
No.
So at this point, we're not having any games inside at the gym?
Not since volleyball.
Since volleyball. But in volleyball, what were we doing for cleaning? Once a week, twice a week?
They were only having one game. I mean, we were cleaning after practices and stuff.
But it's-
Because, you say it's only this many games a week, but they're practicing on the days they don't have.
Practices each day. Not as, you don't have to be, I won't say as thorough, but you don't have to do a thorough,
You don't have to clean as much of the area.
right, because you don't have as many outside people in at the time.
And they're not on the bleachers, they're not.
So I guess my question is, if we're looking to approve this, are we going to be able to handle this from a staffing perspective to actually accomplish this?
Can't really make any guarantees right now. I'm averaging people out each week right now, too.
So if we start this fall, a winter program, and we're having, how often are the practices, Eric? Every day?
So,
Are we practicing 2 days a week and 2 games? I mean,
so when the season gets started, so December 14th is when the official practices start. The season, first day you're allowed to practice. Those are every day, Monday through Friday, occasionally Sundays. And again,
I don't think we're gonna be able to do weekends as well, Eric.
What's that?
Weekends are gonna be extremely difficult for us to do.
so when do we need a decision on this, Eric?
I mean, it's the sooner the better with this decision. We don't start up officially till December 11th. December 14th for games. For practices. But again, the sooner I know, the better I can schedule. There's no one is scheduling until I get a commitment on the board level, so we don't have games and then all of a sudden we don't get it.
But here's the problem, Eric. How is the board able to give you a commitment when the ability to follow this plan as far as staffing, as far as cleaning the gym, as far as when the practices are gonna be, when the games are gonna be, and are we able to clean the facilities with the manpower we've got? This board needs to have that answer before we could make a decision on this. So to me, if that's not been addressed fully yet, I think we should table this to the next meeting. Gonna be meeting next week. But the staff needs.
The practices are happening in the gym just like the fall. So everything will continue just like the fall. And games, again, would happen during the week and it would be just like the fall. So any procedures that we did in the fall, we would just continue in the winter.
Sounds simple, doesn't it?
I'm gonna make a motion to table to the 23rd.
I'm gonna second. And the reason I'm gonna second is just from what I stated, Eric. You're gonna need to work with Larry and Ruth Ellen to make sure that we can address this satisfactorily before the board's comfortable pursuing with this, because the logistics are gonna make or break us. If we can't maintain our level of cleanliness, then we could be making a situation worse than it needs to be. So, any discussion from Josh or Stan?
I do, Mr. King, I'm on.
Oh, go ahead, Joel.
Could we potentially give, because here's the problem. Unless we give some sort of intention to potentially participate in the winter season, Eric's not going to get a schedule together. Because other ADs, if they say, well, if you're not heading down the road of wanting to play winter sports, we're not going to schedule with you. So if we can at least give him the authority to try to put together a schedule with these schools, knowing that any of these schools can back out at any time because of any kind of health threat, we can at least get an idea of what that schedule will look like.
But what if for the cleaning conditions, Joel, we can't commit to that schedule after we've already committed to the other schools?
Well, it's not, I would just say, could we authorize Eric to start having conversations with other ADs about a potential schedule, knowing, and he'll have to communicate that. Our board wants to see a potential schedule before they make a final decision. It just gives him the latitude of at least having those conversations with fellow ADs.
I don't have any problem with him having discussions regarding the schedule with other ADs and pursuing that, but before I'm ready to approve it, I need to make sure that we have the manpower and resources to accomplish this without stretching past the point of reasonableness. And to be honest, I think these questions should have been asked before it got to this on the agenda.
So we've lost manpower since the fall season ended?
I don't know, Joel.
Well, Larry can answer.
I can answer right now. I have 2 people out on medical that I don't know when they're going to be back. So that's 2 people down. We don't have The one person that we got part-time was still waiting for a background check to come back. The two people from the agency were waiting for their background checks to come back, so yes, we've lost manpower.
Any idea when you'd expect those background checks to be in place? Are we 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out?
We had, one went in, came back, they didn't accept the prints because they were smudged, so we has to go through the process again, and that was a 2-week wait.
One other question,
Go ahead.
Brian, I don't know, I guess it's for Ms. Vaughn. Have you and Eric and Larry all sat down to talk about this?
Not at this time.
Okay, Ruth Ellen, since you're the one that recommends what things need to be on the agenda to the chair, why is it on the agenda then? Why is it even on the agenda to discuss this when the three of you haven't sat down? This happened in the fall too, folks. Can we get it together, please?
Okay.
Ridiculous to even waste time putting it on the agenda.
Any other discussion on the motion? Not hearing any. All in favor, which is tabled to the next meeting. Getting staff.
Aye.
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 No.
So it'll be 4 for it, 1
Is
opposed.
that Mr. Whitehouse?
I don't know.
Who was opposed?
Mr. Whitehouse.
Okay.
Thank you.
Interesting. Okay, moving on to reports. First one we have on the agenda is Valley View School.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Blake McGurty, Valley View Community School Principal. This past month has been a very busy one at Valley View. I'd like to give the faculty and staff a huge shout out for all of their dedication and hard work this school year. I have unfortunately been out for chunks of time over the past month, and everyone has banded together to keep things running smoothly and safely. And it's great working with such a wonderful group of people. We had a remote day on November 3rd. This was a very successful experience for all of our staff and students. It was the first time this year that the entire school remoted in for the day. The participation we received from students and families was very positive, and it was a very educational experience for everyone. I just want to thank all the families for their support during this day. Over the past couple of weeks, we've noticed more consistency with our Wi-Fi throughout the building, and this has been a huge help in allowing our faculty and students to remain consistently online throughout the day. The Valley View Tiger Squad was formed this month and has already begun putting their heads together to support the students of Valley View. For those of you who don't know, the Tiger Squad is a group of 3rd grade students who take on a leadership role within the building and promote positivity throughout the Valley View community. This year's group will be working together to create a Valley View yearbook, and we are all extremely excited about this. We'd like to thank Bambi Story from Frisbee Smiles for coming into Valley View to teach students about dental health, and we were also excited that she was able to connect with our remote students as well. This week is American Education Week, and all week the students will be celebrating education in the school and celebrating each day in different ways. Again, I know Mr. Roberts extended the invitation last week, but we welcome the board to join us for a tour of the school, so if that's something we're interested in, please reach out. Over the past week or so, we've had quite a bit of interest in our paraprofessional positions, but unfortunately, we have not been able to secure anyone as of yet. We're hoping to do so in the coming days. And unfortunately, we're still continuing to struggle with coverage in the classrooms. While Valley View does not have any teachers who are consistently out of the building, remoting into their class, we do have faculty and staff that need to be out of the building for one reason or another. And these scenarios create a situation where cohorts are not being as separated as much as we would like, but we are working with that. So that's it from Valley View. I just want to thank you for your time, and I hope everyone has a great night.
Thank you, Blake. Does anyone have any questions for Blake? Moving along to Henry Wilson Memorial.
Good evening, everyone. Matt Costongway, principal of Henry Wilson. Hope you all are doing well. I kind of split my report this month into two sections, what's going well and what are some of our challenges. So we'll start, of course, with the positives. As Mr. McGurty just stated, I again would like to give a shout out to all of our HWMS staff who've been stepping up and helping with student supervision and coverage. This is an everyday occurrence, and I'm so proud of our staff working together and helping each other out, as well as administration, to keep our students safe and supervised at Henry Wilson. A shout out to our students as well for being patient with the COVID-19 procedures and protocols. There have been very few issues with students who challenge this, and we rarely have an issue with a student not wearing a mask correctly. Everyone is working together to keep our staff and students safe at our school. Also, as Mr. Gertie mentioned, I too would love to give a huge thank you to our IT department for fixing our Wi-Fi, especially just in time for the state assessment testing that we recently did at Henry Wilson. Overall, our Wi-Fi has greatly improved, and we truly appreciate Mrs. Loudon and Mr. Johnson for working extremely hard to rectify some of the issues we were having. This year, because of COVID, we started a new UA cycle rotation at Henry Wilson. It's been going very well. We're doing this to lessen exposure throughout the school, where each grade level has the same unified arts class every day for approximately 6 weeks. Our students and staff have provided us with positive feedback on this approach. As you might remember, we opened a brand new STEAM lab at Henry Wilson this year. We had a tremendous fundraising effort last winter before COVID wreaked havoc on us, and we were still able to open our brand new STEAM lab at Henry Wilson for this school year, and the students really, really love it. Our new STEAM teacher has been doing a great job with hands-on projects and activities that spark our students' interest and promote continuous student engagement. I was actually in there just the other day. Our 4th grade students were hard at work, all focused and all engaged with hands-on and building circuits, while still having to work independently and distant. So it's just been great to see, although the students have to work independently and not in small groups, that they're still engaged, that they're still enjoying some great hands-on projects. And it truly has been a wonderful addition to our school and to our academics. I just wanted to highlight some of the curriculum focuses that have gone extremely well so far this school year. I actually observed a terrific 8th grade English language arts lesson along with Mrs. Pomeroy last week. We currently are doing learning walks across our school where we're going into classrooms and doing 20 to 25 minute lesson observations and walkthroughs. And then Mrs. Pomeroy and I are meeting after to calibrate our feedback so that the feedback that we are providing the staff is more cohesive and more spot on, if you will, between Mrs. Pomeroy and myself. We observed a great 8th grade ELA lesson, which included high student engagement, critical thinking, collaboration, and some strong assessment, which we really enjoyed seeing. In grades 4 through 6, we are working on guided reading and reader's workshop in reading. We are continuing to put pieces in place so that we have a comprehensive English language arts curriculum and approach at Henry Wilson. Currently, teachers are assessing their students in reading interest, developmental word knowledge, reading fluency, and comprehension. In grades 7 and 8, we are utilizing EL Education's language arts curriculum. and that's the first time that this is being utilized in our school. Currently, teachers are working with students on Module 1 of the curriculum, and both grade levels in 7 and 8 are reading tremendous novels, working on improving students' reading comprehension and expanding writing skills in written responses to higher level thinking questions related to the text that they're reading. As you know, Henry Wilson has been doing a lot of focusing over the last year with social emotional learning under the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning framework. In grades 4, 5, and 6, they are focused on responsive classroom, morning meeting, and social thinking, whereas in grades 7 and 8, they're focused on responsive advisory and accept, identify, move, which is a social emotional learning curriculum. And this year, our unified arts teachers are working on responsive classroom and the responsive approach to unified arts. Some of our challenges that we're currently experiencing. Recently, I sat down with each of our team leaders individually to gather some important feedback from our staff. Based on that feedback, Mrs. Pomeroy and I are working collaboratively to assist with rectifying or improving some of the ongoing challenges and stressors our staff is currently feeling. We have worked with the teachers on specific instructional approaches that better accommodate for synchronous learning with students in both models, in person and remote by choice. We've discussed some of these approaches and how they may help with our staff stress levels as well. In our November staff meeting, we challenged our staff to try some of these approaches out throughout the next few weeks, and we actually made a competition out of it to hopefully celebrate some wins our teachers experience in their classrooms, as celebrating wins, as we all know, is very important, and especially during these challenging times. And just a quick note for our HWMS parents, we really need continued support from them, especially with our remote students and their learning and engagement. We have a tremendous group of parents who are supportive and actively involved in their child's education. Unfortunately, there's also a group that's not. Our teachers have been really reaching out to parents to discuss their concerns and are often left with voicemails that go unreturned, phone numbers that have been disconnected or are blocking the school number, and emails left not replied to. For our students to get the best possible education, it really must be a school-home partnership. We want what is best for our students and their academic and social emotional growth while at our school. So we're just asking our parents to really work with us to support all of our students, no matter which model they're currently in, so that they have a successful year at Henry Wilson. And as Mr. McCurdy also mentioned, this week is American Education Week, and Thursday especially is Community Day. And again, the invite to our school board members still stands. We'd love to have you in, even if it's just for a few minutes, to really get a nice observation in on all the wonderful things that are happening at our school. Thank you.
Matt, I have a couple questions for you. First one is on the last topic you talked about, which was some difficulties communicating with parents because of disconnected phone numbers or email not replied. I guess, what is our plan B to reach out in these cases? Typically, what steps are taken by staff and which staff?
So if our staff continuously receives no response from specific parents, the next step is to get guidance involved. And then our guidance counselors sometimes are able, for a variety of reasons, reach some of those parents, just possibly because of prior relationships, for example. And sometimes just to get our guidance counselors involved does help alleviate some of the situations we currently have. If that continues to be unsuccessful, then we do reach the admin level And at the admin level, it may include a home visit. It may include working with our school resource officer, and also just continuous outreach, whether it's then to Diana Danino or our superintendent, to just make sure that we have some kind of communication. Sometimes it's simple as the parents did not update their contact info with us. So for example, we do have a group of parents that have not updated their contact info for this school year. So if we're able to get in touch with them via possibly an emergency contact, we're able to put in additional or new contact info into PowerSchool. So if the staff isn't able to get in touch with parents, it's kind of moving up the chain, if you will, to put pieces in place so that we do get some kind of communication.
So how much time are we allowing before we take it to the next step? I mean, my concern when I ask this question is that because we have some people have remote learning and other things going on, my concern is and hope is that we're moving through the steps much quicker than we normally would so that we're not leaving students behind.
We are. We're looking at home visits, and one of the other things that I'll jump in and then give it back to Matt is we're also sending out things via return receipt requested and certified mail, so that it also helps us to confirm, is the address correct as well?
Yeah, that would just be my concern, is that we're moving through those steps quicker than normal to make sure that, like I said, we don't leave students
Absolutely.
behind. My next question was regarding item 6, the EL Educators English Language Arts Curriculum. It states you're being used for the first time. So mine's just a question to be educated on this. This is a new curriculum that we're adding, and who selected that and for what reasons?
Do you want to go with that, Matt?
Sure. So, based on some reasons, one of which includes the low test scores that have been taking place at Henry Wilson over the last few years, we looked first at our 7th and 8th ELA curriculum. As my observations, for example, last year, I did not really see a cohesive approach to our ELA curriculum in our upper grades at Henry Wilson. So talking with the assistant principal and talking with our curriculum director, Dr. McBrady, we selected EL Education. Both her and I have extensive experience with the open source curriculum that EL Education comes from. It's standards based. It's very directed, which we liked because of the classroom cuts at Henry Wilson last year. This year, we lost a classroom teacher at both 7th and 8th grades. So this year, every teacher in 7th and 8th grade are teaching ELA, which for some is outside of their comfort zone. And EL Education offers really the opportunity for a directed approach, more scripted, if you will, so that there is an easier pathway for teachers to follow with instructing the standards-based curriculum in both reading and writing. The curriculum really has our students thinking at a higher level. As I mentioned, critical thinking is a huge piece that we need to improve at Henry Wilson. That's something that Mrs. Pomeroy, me, and Dr. McBride noticed last year. So that's an additional piece to the EL that we really liked. And then the second is the responding to writing. Henry Wilson, we must improve our writing scores and our students' writing ability, whether it's basic grammar to longer assignments, multiple paragraph essays, open response answers to students to what they read in a text. That's something that our students really struggle with, and EL Education does a very nice job in really raising the bar for our students and providing them with the skills necessary so that they can improve their writing skills and be better successful in writing overall.
So that's good to know. So I guess my next question is, when will we be able to assess that this is working, and by what techniques are we going to be able to assess that this is an improvement? Through testing, some type of auditing? I mean, and when would that assessment of whether or not it's being effective going to take place?
So one positive, even though it was very crazy having state testing this past October on top of everything COVID related. One positive piece is related directly to your question. We have a baseline now on where our students are at. I'll be sharing the results of the assessment with our staff over the next week or so. We'll be analyzing the data. We'll be looking at our strengths and weaknesses. We'll be talking about which standards we really need to focus on with our students, which standards in EL education that we need to really focus on with our students. And then in the springtime, the students will be taking another state assessment. So we'll definitely be able to compare some of the scores from October to the springtime. And then on top of formative assessments that our teachers will be giving, including, for example, if the students are responding to figurative language, we can use a writing piece from that compared to a writing piece in the spring to use the rubric to really look over each student's writing from the fall to the spring and utilize that data to see how effective the program implementation is going on top of other formative assessments and data through IXL or Edmentum, which the teachers and the students use as well. So looking at the student growth over time, not only from month to month, but again from fall to spring, will definitely give us a strong idea on the quality of the program and how it did improve. And of course, when we get to the spring, I'll be happy to review that data with you, or even this fall review the SAS, the state assessment data from October, and then discuss in the spring how we improved in specific areas that we really kind of hyper focused on, where we did or do need to improve.
And this fall testing that we did was required by the state, but it is not part of our accountability system. They wanted us to have a baseline this fall. We had some options of what test we did. We could have used STAR. We could have used some of the other pieces that we've typically done in-house. But we chose to go ahead and do the interim assessments that are done by the state. One, because we would have the apples-to-apples comparison going into the spring testing, and also knowing that we had to turn around and upload those results back to the state. By using the state interim test, it was a fairly seamless transfer to have them take, for instance, STAR assessments and then try to translate would have been more of a platform shift. So we went with the state testing for that piece for the fall.
Jim, do you have something?
I got two. First, Matt, if you don't mind, when you talk about the parents that aren't involved that we're having a tough time reaching, can you put a number to that at your school? Ballpark?
Ballpark, I would say 1/3.
1/3 of the remote students or 1/3 of the student population?
Remote. If I count both in-person and remote, that number would definitely drop to about, I would say, 20%.
Okay.
So it's a pretty significant number, unfortunately.
Your math doesn't work, Matt. Sorry.
Well, he's saying that
sorry?
Your math doesn't work.
if you put everybody, because only about 30% of students are remote.
Right.
So a third of those may not be that responsive, but when you take the school overall altogether, it's about 20% of the parents overall.
Right, but if it's 30% of the people remoting, and the remoting is only 30%, that's only 10%, not 20%. That's why I'm confused. But either way,
But when you add the in-person students as well.
right. But either way, that's a pretty significant number, 20%, even if it's 20% total. That would be 60.
I don't know the census.
What's the total number of students in the school? 300?
About 300.
Roughly 300.
That would be 60. That's a significant number.
Now, that's the parents of 60 students. It doesn't mean it's 60 individual families, because some of those families
Yeah,
have multiple students.
Yeah, I was expecting a much smaller number, so I'm surprised by it, and it goes back.
We have,
Well, the thing is,
this year, because we've been really working hard to have positive parental outreach, we've created a Google form at Henry Wilson where every time a teacher or staff member reaches out to a parent, they complete a brief Google form to provide us with important data. And we have approximately 600 entries into that form so far. And if we look at the data in that form, you will often see teachers writing in, left voicemail, voicemail full, number blocked, school number blocked, follow up, left a voicemail, followed up with an email. Then the next day or 2 days after, you'll see that the same teacher log it again with the same student, with the same result. And again, this is data that I'll happily, share with the board if you'd like. But we do have some pretty significant data that tells us that this is a problem.
Tim, you had something else?
Yeah, I'm going to just absorb part of that for now. But one of the questions I did have in the state testing, Matt says he's sharing that with the faculty. When is that type of information coming back to the board, considering we're in budget? I mean, part of our budget process is to look at what do we need to budget that's going to educationally enhance our children. And if there's data that's out there that we're not aware of, I don't think it's constructive during the budget process.
Yeah, but that is mostly regarding the change in curriculum in that English language.
The state standardized testing is what I'm referring to.
Understood. I will say that as we've looked at preliminary pieces, part of the recommendations that Misty and I have brought forward are based on, and we can certainly get you.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I think as soon as you can get it to the board would be good, so that we can see what you're seeing, and then also not be after the fact, say, okay, because if we assess that, say after the fact, we put forth the budget to the budget committee, that we have significant deficiency in an area, we're going to go, why didn't we see that before? It may not be the case, but the sooner we have that information, and regarding any things that budgetarily, it'd be good to know.
What's our deadline with the budget committee? Is it the 9th?
December 1st. To have the pieces to the budget committee, the presentation, the board's presentation to the budget committee is December 9th.
Okay, so we've got 3 meetings, including tonight, to have a budget out that, I mean, to me, those data sets are an important part of the budget process. You know, it may be a baseline, but is it a baseline that's better than last year? Are we down from last year? I mean, those are significant conversations that we have to have during the process, and I'll kind of end on that note.
Okay, anyone
And
else?
the testing just wrapped up at the end of October, so it has only been a couple of weeks, but since the testing was in all grades 4 through 8, I would be happy to make a presentation to the school board to review the overall data from the SAS assessments for the month of October.
Okay, we're going to keep that in mind. Anyone with any other questions for Matt? Not hearing, I want to thank you, Matt, and keep up the good work. And next we have Farmington High School. Do we have Paul?
Yeah, good evening. Just want to highlight a few things that has been happening at the high school, some in October, some currently right now. Currently, we have 243 students enrolled in Farmington High School. Of these, 75 are remote by choice. We've done a lot with the college-bound things, and I'll get into that, but we also are looking at those seniors and juniors who are kind of undecided as to what they want to do, or if they're deciding that they want to go into the workforce. We've begun surveying those students to find out, just to develop a better understanding of the things that they may need, so we can try to help them make that transition from school to work. During October, the SAT was administered to approximately 50 seniors. The PSAT was given to 53 juniors. We will be having an all-school testing day, but that won't come up until March, where we do SAT and PSATs to the school. Throughout October, we've had a lot of college visits. This fall, we probably had the largest number of seniors sign up and attend the virtual meetings with the college representatives, and was told that actually this was the largest number of students that we've had in quite some time. Today, they held the I Am College Bound workshops were held in the library. They were held during real time and a little bit beyond. These workshops are designed to help students finish their college applications. If any of the students were applying to schools here in New Hampshire and they finished their applications today, then the fees were waived for the applications for those students. So again, kind of a plus for people who are thinking about college and having to watch pretty closely their money. Tomorrow night, from 6:30 to 8 o'clock, Financial Aid 101 is being held using Google Meets. The workshop is for seniors and their families. The Farmington High School guidance page or the district Facebook page has the meeting link so parents and seniors can get in, and there's a lot of good information that they need to find out. Like my fellow principals have said, I can't say enough about the staff at Farmington High School. They have helped fill in wherever they need to fill in, and they've done it in a very professional manner. And also I want to thank the students and parents. Students that are in person, we haven't really had a lot of major difficulties with the wearing of masks or the inappropriate wearing of masks. I mean, the kids seem to understand that this is what they have to do in order to be here. And also in my Sunday update, I put out a thank you to parents who have continued doing the pre-screening form and continue getting their kids here. The morning has become very, very efficient. We, by the 7:45 bell, everybody is in. And kids, if they're not in their first period block, are pretty much on their way to their first period block. A few dates coming up that I'd just like to highlight for any of the parents that might be listening. Parent conferences are November 24th. You can contact the office and we have a form that we're using as far as putting what people are requesting for times in, and then teachers will be getting back to the parents this weekend or Monday. We are looking for parents who want to be part of a discussion group that is part of the NEAS visit, which is going to happen on December 7th. And you need to be able to devote about an hour of your time. I want to think the time is, I try to remember from my Sunday update. I think it's roughly about 10:30 in the morning. I'll double check that and make sure it goes back out again. And also the 8th and 9th and 16th of January is the strategic design event. And if there are community members that would like to participate in that, there were some links that went out on the Sunday update that they can click onto, put their name and information, and then we'll be back in touch with them. So I guess I want to thank everybody. Thank you for the time. Thank you to the community for everything that you're doing to help in Farmington High School. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, Paul, I got a couple questions for you. On the virtual college visits that you had, who did we have participating for colleges? Was it just colleges?
I want to think like NHTI, Plymouth State University. I can talk to Ms. Sauer and get you a complete list. Okay, those are the only two that I remember off the top of my head. If you'd like a complete list.
No, I was just curious to see if it was just colleges or it was also vocational schools like NHTI, which is a very good school.
Yeah, I believe it's been a mixture of both.
You know, I'm gonna plug them because I went there a few years ago.
No problem.
You know, I think it's a great school. My daughter, who's graduated Farmington, went to nursing school there, now is an ICU nurse at Portsmouth Hospital. Another plug for the school. So,
no problem.
Hopefully the participation in that was high. And how do you, when somebody decides that they're going to not go on to college and go into the workforce, what do you have for resources that helps them make a decision on what might be available out there as far as careers entering straight into the workforce?
Well, actually, and that's one thing we're really working to develop. I mean, there are some opportunities through the ELL program that Ms. Lovell is organizing and running. Also, there's been a group of us, myself, guidance, the social worker, and Mrs. Donito have been meeting to try to organize a more coherent response and to help those kids that are looking to go into the workforce. And we've been brainstorming basically here, how can we get out through the senior advisors a more detailed survey just to kind of help us, guide us as to what are they thinking about. In other words, are kids thinking about going maybe into food service? Are they thinking maybe they just want to work basic construction? What is it that they're interested in? So then we can reach out and basically hopefully get some employers to be able to talk to these kids about what's going on, what they need to do. We want to work with kids on basic, how do you do interviews, make sure resumes are put together, and doing all those basic type of things, I guess, that probably you and I take for granted because we've done it, probably a few times over our career. So those are the things that we're planning on putting together, and there's a group of us that meets. We've met really about once every couple of weeks, starting about 3-4 weeks ago, and beginning to plan ideas, try to brainstorm, and then basically now reaching out with some more concrete things like a survey. When the survey stuff comes back, we're going to take a look at it and see how we can help to organize and help kids move in the directions that they think they want to go.
Yeah, if I could jump in on this, that's Diana Donito. Thank you so much, Paul, because we have been working the last couple of weeks. We've got a group of us. We have some money left over in the Student Assistance Program grant. And we want to use it specifically to target those students who are going to be leaving high school that either want to enter the workforce or undecided or looking at participating in an apprenticeship or an internship of some kind. So we have a collection of administration, building level administration, special education teachers, our student assistance program people, Jill Heath from Stratford Learning Center. They're all kind of coming together to come up with, and also Jess Lovell, who unfortunately couldn't make the last 2 meetings because I'm terrible at scheduling them for when she can get there. But the next one she's going to be at, because the first 2 were just really for, kind of getting things off the ground. We're at the point where the student assistance program staff and the guidance counselors are going to interview those seniors that have indicated that they are doing an apprenticeship or they're going to enter the job force or they're undecided, to determine what it is they need to make those next steps. We're really interested in providing the opportunity for these students to get part-time jobs to start with, to build resumes, to check and see if they have appropriate clothing for, doing an interview, to help solve the issues of transportation, and to also to provide someone that they know there to meet them, to kind of get them through that, those first, couple of, steps of getting into the building and getting situated. Maybe it looks like somebody, who's a staff member who's shopping at Market Basket while the kid has just started their job, to kind of check in and make sure everything's going okay. So it's in the development stage, but we're excited about the possibilities because we certainly have a lot of kids that, can be great productive members of Farmington society if we can, kind of give them the assistance they need to get off the ground. Thanks for bringing it up, Paul. I'm thrilled.
Are you guys?
We've had a lot of people working on it.
Diane, are you guys collecting any statistics or information about, say, historically, what has been available jobs in this area, say, in the last 3 to 6 months, and saying, okay, in the last 6 months, there's been, this many jobs in manufacturing, retail, food service, construction, and these were the advertised starting wages in those fields? Are you guys collecting any of that information to present to the kids to say, this is what has been available in the last 3 to 6 months as far as what employers have been looking for, to give them any feel for what the availability or need is and the pay ranges for those job openings?
We haven't started to do that dive yet into, kind of looking at the statistics in terms of what's available and what the salary ranges are. At this point, we're looking to see what are the needs that we need to meet. And then once we have a sense of what those needs are, we do want to, I think it does make sense to, kind of look at the demographics of employment and decide, kind of help kids, gauge, does it make sense to get a job at Market Basket where you're making this much, or does it make sense to, try to get a job if you're qualified to a certain degree at the shipyard? So we haven't, we haven't started to encounter that just yet, but I think that's a good suggestion.
Anyone else? Or anything for Paul or Diana?
I got a quick question for Diana. Diana, have we looked at a curriculum in the later years of school for these children that have identified that they're going out in the workforce that would help them more in the workforce than it would as kind of a college prep? An example might be for somebody that might go into construction and do dirt work, a concentration on mathematics that, does area and different measurements or something like that we're preparing these students more for the workforce that are going to head out into the workforce, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. I think I heard everything you were talking about. We do have, for instance, math for the trades at the high school this year, which I think fulfills that desire for those students that want to leave the high school and, go out and really get to work right away on a construction site. We are looking as well, actually that was part of our conversation with Jill Heath, who was at the meeting today from Stratford Learning Center. She has a curriculum that she's willing to share with Jess Lovell. Sorry, Jess, if you're just hearing this right now. I think I sent you an email earlier today. that she's willing to share with us about, kind of prepping students in the later stages of high school for getting ready for the workforce. I think we're still looking at, the specific, so we have, those plans and work. We do work with New Hampshire Vocational Rehabilitation Assistants. They do come and work with students who have special education needs. But certainly we want to get to those students that don't necessarily have an IEP and still need, to find a way to work themselves into the workforce. So that's part of what we're working on right now. So we're happy to hear any and all suggestions.
Anyone else with questions?
Just got a quick comment.
Go ahead.
Just as a quick comment, you mentioned Market Basket. A store manager at Market Basket makes more money than we're paying a superintendent of schools, just as a fact.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear all of that.
I said you mentioned Market Basket as a career for some of our kids, but it's, I want to make sure it's not minimized as a career opportunity, because most of their store managers make more money than we're paying a superintendent of schools.
Yeah, I mean, that really is a great opportunity, and when you do go there, you do see a number of I call them kids because I just happen to be that age, but, younger individuals who are working there as managers, and it certainly has a great upward mobility, and does have opportunity for benefits if you do make it into the managerial area. So yeah, I don't minimize it at all. I mean, same for, Hobby Lobby and other locations out there. I mean, there is a great deal of opportunity.
Yeah, and Market Basket, it also has the reputation of hiring from within their own. I have a really good friend who has basically made his work career in Market Basket, and like you were just saying, I mean, he right now has moved up from basically starting out as basically a stalker, is now he is one of their buyers. So, you're right. I mean, I'm not discounting it or not diminishing it, because they do have that reputation of hiring from within.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of rewarding, high-paying jobs in this area that people think they have to go out of the area or go to college to be able to get. And I think when you look in the help wanted section, you will see ads like entry-level position, signing bonuses for entry-level positions, and they're out there, and that just shows the need in some of these areas that, everyone could say, hey, I want to be I want to be a jet pilot, but there's not that many jobs out for jet pilots. But there are a lot of jobs that people can find rewarding that are in this immediate area, that whether it be the shipyard or some other areas in manufacturing or service-orientated business. I'm a small business owner, and we all discuss the same problem with trying to get people into our trade, and saying you put an ad out there and nobody applies. And why is that? Even though there's people coming into the workforce and you're willing to pay a competitive wage, and social media is, the way advertising for jobs has changed quite a bit in the last few years. And I know I haven't adjusted to get out to the people that may be looking, because, it used to be Craigslist was a good way. Before that, it was a newspaper. And now, I don't have an answer. So, but it would be good to, the ability to collect some information about what the jobs in the area are, and then give that information to the kids that might be considering work, because they may say, oh, I might want to do that or give that a try, and then look, there's 10 jobs out there for it. But if they want to be, something else, that they may not have any jobs available in the area to start their working career. So, moving along under old business, we have, and I want to thank you, Diana, thank you, Paul. In old business, we have update on SPSRF amounts. What is that?
That's the grant that we just did the public hearing on last week.
the unanticipated $168,800.
Which isn't 168 anymore. That's the update.
The update is the state used the wrong numbers for every school district in the state for enrollment. They're off by a year. So when it was corrected, we went down to 158.8. So exactly $10,000. I just wanted to let you guys be aware of that.
So we don't have to redo the public hearing because the numbers don't exceed what we were given, but just to let you know that it is 10,000 less than we had anticipated.
How many students have we lost to homeschooling during COVID?
We had a wave right at the beginning, which has slowed down tremendously. We've got maybe 6 or 7 more families left than we typically have in a given year. We did have several students who chose to go to VLAX, but haven't necessarily withdrawn to do that. So our homeschool numbers looked like they were trending high and then stopped fairly quickly. And some of those parents started the withdrawal process thinking they had to withdraw to go to VLAX, and then said, oh, well, we're planning to come back next year. And I said, well, then you don't have to withdraw. You can remain a Farmington student through June and still attend VLAX this year.
Okay. Next under old business was construction.
Larry, do you want to come up and discuss this at all? Or, I mean, well, it sounds like the high school roof is now complete, with the exception, do we still have the, what do we have left on that? If any?
They came in today and finished the small part out here on the entranceway that they had forgotten about. So high school's done except for the outside ladder that's supposed to be installed.
Okay, and that is being, that's something they've got to complete and a date is set? Or
It's part of the RFP.
Yeah, by the RFP. I haven't had updates.
Okay, so
They've moved down to Henry Wilson. They're supposed to start
Okay.
there tomorrow. They have stuff on, material on the roof down there now.
So you had put, or Ruth Ellen had put in, O'Brien was the author.
Well, it's,
it wasn't.
we added it in.
Yeah.
And some of that may be whether you want to discuss that here or.
Well, this is, I read it. I know it was in a sensitive docs folder. Excuse me. But I read it and it pertains to outside services that we've contracted.
Correct.
So that doesn't qualify in a non-public. So reading it, the gist of it, I don't know if any board members had, it, I guess, implies that Jeff Greenhall is, which we tasked to manage this, has not been fulfilling his obligations, in your opinion, or?
I'm just
not
saying,
sure?
I'm just saying I haven't had any updates on it. The roofing company said that they haven't seen him on site anytime during
Right,
this.
that's your email referred to what they had stated, which is what you
Correct.
just said.
I've had a request from Progressive Roofing that they want final payment on the high school, which I'm not giving them because no one's told me.
Nobody's
Jeff should have
inspected it yet, as far as I'm aware.
Right.
And looked, he's never checked in with them to even see if they were doing it right or not.
So, I mean, to me, it seems like something needs to be addressed, so I don't know if the board, did you read that?
I did.
Okay. I mean, I have no problem reaching out to Jeff to discuss it with him, or we can have Brian do it, but if it's something that I need to take and, you know, I mean, we're the ones that hired him, and if we feel that maybe there's something going on, and say, hey, what's the status on this? This is what we're expecting. What's the status? I have no problem doing it.
Yeah, no, I got a call.
It seems like something needs, that somebody needs to have a conversation to find out what the status is on the review of this, signing off on it.
Yep.
And the status of the ladder and the startup of Henry Wilson, right?
I believe I was told by John, who's the owner of Progressive, that they're going to be starting at Henry Wilson tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have any problem with that.
Because they were here, like I said, they were here today finishing the small entranceway roof out here that they forgot about.
Okay, so I guess I'll poll the board. How does the board want to handle this? Do they want to have Ruth Ellen, Brian, or myself contact Jeff to get an update and get this oversight back on track?
How about would you feel better if I gave him a call and gave you an update and let you go from there?
We can do it any way the board wants. I don't have any problem picking up the phone and having a brief and blunt discussion.
I think it was the board that brought them forward in reviewing the bids. I think we've seen good work
I don't know what the situation is, but
prior to, so I'm going to make a motion that the chair contact the contractor on behalf of the board and update us with the status of next week, because I'd like to get the company paid if they've done their work.
so we have a motion. Do we have a second? Josh, Stan, or Joel?
The motion die for lack of a second?
You guys with us?
Yep, I'm here. Here.
So no one's in favor of seconding Tim's motion to have me contact Jeff?
Second.
Second for discussion. I mean, if the board's not in favor, we can just have staff deal with it. I'm fine with it. I just felt obligated to at least get his attention and get him communicating with the people he needs to communicate with. Any discussion on the motion? Not hearing any. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
3-4, 1 opposed. I abstained. So I will contact him tomorrow, and I will relay by email to Brian and Ruth Ellen the conversation and what will be happening as the next steps as far as him reaching out to you, Progressive Roofing, or Larry regarding the status of his services. Anything else on the construction? Where do we stand with Henry Wilson on the safety upgrades?
The pipes have been removed from the window here, or the window opening, let's say. Waiting for Portland glass to get those in. That's the latest update I've got on that. DW Security is coming in tomorrow to put the interior film on the doors and windows at all 3 schools, so that'll be taken care of. And like I said, the rest is waiting for Portland glass to come in to install the windows, get the windows in, and do the interior locks on the doors, on the interior doors.
And what is the film for?
The film is an added security to the windows to prevent
That's right.
breakage.
I remember now. I don't know if it was...
And the wall, the office wall that was put in the assistant principal's room at Henry Wilson, that's complete, along with the 2 doors that were added to that room. So, counter has been
Sorry, Mr.
modified.
Chair.
Yes?
One of the board members mentioned, we're just having a difficult time hearing Larry, and I was told by another a difficult time hearing Tim, if they could speak a little louder.
Okay, thank you, Jen.
Sorry.
YouTube picks it up pretty well.
Okay, Larry.
That's because these are to YouTube.
Well,
That one is.
That one.
They can turn YouTube on, and we got a phone right there.
So
the countertop at Valley View has been, the modifications to that are done, and the tiles have been replaced on the floor where they had to take the counter base off. So basically, it's waiting on Portland glass for the rest of the components, hardware for the doors, and
So do you think we'll be wrapped up in the next couple of weeks?
there's supposed to be, we have a December 1st deadline.
Okay, which is a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Next, we have budget.
I got a C.
You do? Go ahead,
I
see.
do. I want to update on the teachers' concerns that we've heard for the last couple of weeks as far as staffing, stress levels. It sounds like Matt is doing some proactive at his school on reducing them. Has anything changed?
We have had several interviews to get pairs in. At this point, we are still looking for someone who will take the position on some of them. We have hired one of the special ed positions. Part of the issue with having people in and out has been that as numbers have gone up, we have had more people who have been out being tested for one reason or another, which makes that stress about trying to figure out, okay, who's in, who's waiting for a test, where are we? It has, I think, leveled out some. I have a few more people who are waiting for fingerprints to be on the sub list. But again, it's that now we're in the waiting game for the pipeline to get through the state.
As far as additional staffing.
Additional staffing.
So, we still have openings for paras, substitute teachers, and teachers?
Yes.
So on the background checks, one of the comments earlier was smudged fingerprints.
Yes.
Do we have the ability to send them to one of the APHIS stations, and can we recommend that? Because
I do. I strongly recommend that they go to have the live scan done. It's so much simpler and usually comes through a little bit faster as well.
You'll get a rejection if they're not.
They do, because if there's a problem, they correct it right there on the screen. We have had some people that for whatever reason no, I want to do it locally. Farmington PD is not running prints right now, and so
I thought they were doing it for the school.
they had been, but
Yeah.
because they've been short-staffed, they've stopped doing prints right now. That may have changed again in the last couple of days, but as of the end of last week, they weren't doing prints.
Does our resource officer know how to fingerprint?
She could probably do that here. We haven't had people coming into the buildings either, but could do it in the lobby.
So if our police department is short-staffed and unable to do it, say maybe that's cured itself, where would they go?
If they do the live scan, those are done both in Alton and at the Dover DMV
Okay, but
by appointment.
by appointment.
Yes.
But if Farmington wouldn't do it, it's unlikely that Rochester would provide the service for Farmington residents.
Rochester only does their own residents. So we have had people who don't live in Farmington who have gone to their own community police departments to do it. And our SRO hasn't refused to do it. It's just, we were told the police department isn't doing it right now, so.
Okay, well, I guess maybe I'll ask the question of the selectmen, if they could move us up the priority list, if we have a need. I mean, we're trying to fill these communities,
Right.
positions.
And it's more, I haven't had people saying, I can't get to go do a live scan.
Yeah.
And when we do have smudged prints, it just takes a long time.
Now, have we continued to advertise and put out that we're looking for paras and subs?
It has been up and has been re-upped and will be going in again. Usually Tuesdays we re-up it.
So we're doing a weekly blast for all the media sources, Facebook. I don't know if we're doing any Twitter.
I now have Twitter capability, and we may also be able to do Instagram this week as well.
Yeah, and
Mr. Chair,
go ahead, Joel.
this is actually a question for Mr. Brown. Tim, with your extensive experience in law enforcement, why is it that perhaps somebody from a neighboring community, Rochester, Milton, New Durham, may be on a substitute list and has had a background check to work in that particular community, can't use that same check to be qualified to work in a neighboring community when it goes through the state level. Do you know why?
I don't.
I've always wondered that.
I don't, and I'm assuming that's a DOE regulation versus state law. There's nothing in the state statutes that I'm aware of, so it has to be a administrative.
It just seems so unnecessary if you've got one that you just had done through the state, at a neighboring community, why that can't be somewhat transferable.
And I agree. We've run into it. In fact, as recently as today, I have an applicant who said, well, I have fingerprints on file for this district, and I said, I can't take your subprints from that district for here because the DOE doesn't allow it.
Shouldn't we ask that question during COVID-19? Why can't they?
Right.
And who do we need to push it up to get some attention to
It
this
has
issue?
been asked of the commissioner. I can certainly try it again.
Wednesday night's budget committee, Joel, and I believe Mr. Petro will be there. I'll bring it to his attention as well, because there might be something in the statute that he may be able to bring forward as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So my last question, then a comment. Since we opened our doors, how many positive cases have we had in our schools with children?
1, 2.
We have the 3 at Henry Wilson.
Four that are our students.
Okay.
We have had a number of families who have had positives within the household who haven't been students. Therefore, we've had students and other people who have been quarantined. They're out from.
Okay.
Yeah.
So four positive tests from the
For
day we opened
students.
our doors till today.
For students,
Of
yes.
students.
What about staff? Including all staff types?
All staff, 2 confirmed.
Okay.
How many of those infections were traced back to our schools?
Did you?
I did hear the question.
So the question was, how many of those were traced back to our school?
Yes.
3 of the students were considered a cluster. The staff, I would say probably not, because other staff members were not.
Do we think that any of those cases were contracted in the building?
I can't say with any certainty. There is always that possibility, but at this point, I can't point to with any definitive to say, yes, it's traced back to here.
So we don't know.
I don't know.
So,
And I would say because we haven't had a number of other staff members in a similar area who were positive, it may not be likely.
Tim?
I guess my outside looking in, what I'm seeing is pandemic that's been very well managed by the schools and not spreading without our schools because of the steps and the partnerships within our buildings that are taking place. I'm hearing stress levels from teachers on having remote and in school, and just the amount of frustration that it's causing their ability. And I'm hearing some of this stress from teachers that I respect and teachers that have been in the district for a great number of years, and that bothers me. So I guess my vision is we're at 11/16. When January 1st, do we consider setting that date as a full-in with restrictions, offer remote only for students that are on quarantine, and watch the statistics between now and then, and make our final decision as we get closer to that date. But I think this is my 3rd meeting that I've sat that our teachers have leveled concerns, and I don't know that there's a solution that's been offered out there that's going to fix what they're going through now.
So I have a question for you. So if you were to take that approach, you have some students that would be, say, in a quarantine situation, and then you may have other students or parents that may not want to be in person with restrictions. What would be their educational option? VLAX?
One would be VLAX, two would be homeschool.
Because Rochester took approach that it was in person with restrictions or VLAX only.
And actually, they did have to back off on some of that because VLAX didn't have the capacity to handle, and there is quite a long waiting list for VLAX right now.
So come December 1st, the VLAX may not be an option?
VLAX may not be an option for all students if we're saying it's either or, you're here or you're not. It may drop our numbers due to homeschool.
So do we have any ability to know what the ability and in what areas VLAX could take students?
I could certainly place a call to Steve Kozakowski tomorrow.
I mean, because if you were to say next year that there's changes, what is availability for students going into VLAX now, and what is he projected to be, say, the beginning of the year? Does he expect it to get slightly better, worse, stay the same? I guess those would be the questions.
I think the other thing we would need to look at is if we are bringing more students into the classroom, will I have the same number of staff who are willing to remain in class? Because at that point, social distancing will not be an option.
At 3 feet, is it really an option now? I mean, if I'm sitting in a classroom and I'm at a desk, how far away is the next person 3 feet from me? The classrooms that I went in, usually I'm sitting here, here's my body, 1, 2, 3 feet, here's my other desk. That's what we're doing now. So do we not have that distance from here to here in our classrooms now?
We might have it now, but if I bring in another 30% of students, and I don't have it in every place now, but there are classrooms that I certainly won't have it if I bring in another 30% of students.
Well, that's certainly a question.
So if this is my desk, the person in front of me's body is going to be closer than that front of the tape measure. I'm sitting in a classroom, and the student next to me is going to be closer than that.
In some classrooms, that's a possibility, yes. In all of them, no, it's not.
So I guess I'll put that in a motion that tentatively we project January 1st as a date to return to school with full restrictions.
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. King, can you repeat that motion?
Go ahead, Tim, repeat your motion, please.
Sorry, I couldn't.
That we set a date of January 1st or whatever the holiday, the school day follows after that, as our tentative date to return to school, full-time, in person, with restrictions.
It would be January 4th.
With the hindsight, Joel, of if our numbers go up, if we have a bad second wave, then we can sit back and discuss and change that date. But I think, I'm not seeing anything done for the teachers. And I think we have to come up with a solution that's going to take a little bit of the weight off of the teachers. That concerns me.
Discussion on a motion. My discussion is I can see some merit for it, but I'm not ready to make that decision at this time. Stan, any discussion?
I would agree with you. Our numbers in New Hampshire and nationwide are going up. I don't think we should be planning to go back yet. I think we should planning to take more precautions.
Anyone else with any discussion?
I just got a comment on it.
Joel.
Go ahead, Joel. Go ahead, Joel.
Yeah, I guess my only thought is you're only a few days off of that holiday break where we don't know where people have been and how many people they've been with.
So what if I amended my motion to January 30th?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I'd probably vote for something that was a little later. I'll give you an example. When the NHIA decided on January 12th to start the winter season, the actual play of the winter season, I believe that was their rationale, was let's get through that holiday break and give ourselves 2 weeks, back before we start. So, I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I'm just not sure if that's just a little too soon.
I mean, my concern in some of my mindset is, A, we have to come up with a solution for the teachers, and B, if we're going to stop remote, we have to give parents time to make plans. So I'll amend my motion to take place February 1st, which is a Monday, taking into consideration what you're saying on the holidays and a potential exposure. If the numbers go up, we got a bunch of sick children in our schools, we can reevaluate and put it off. But I think it's time to start thinking of that solution versus driving our teachers the way we've been driving them and working them hard to the end of the school year. I think something has to give, and if somebody has a better solution, I'm all ears.
Josh, do you accept his change to his motion?
Yeah, I mean, if it's necessary to get Joel's vote, certainly.
You're probably going to need it.
All right, I dropped there.
I
think the China virus has certainly been overblown by the media. I think the risk to our students is lower than the seasonal flu. I don't think any cases of the China virus have been traced back to our school. And I think it's completely safe to open fully in person with the restrictions such as masks on February 1st.
Any other discussion on the motion? Not hearing any. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
I'm opposed. Motion passes 3-2. Anything else for old business? Okay, moving along to budget. We have V2, does that stand for version?
It does.
Version 2.
I was victim.
So this has the highlights that you had requested, the pieces for social services in 2113. That is the SRO position. And then the social worker is included in 1253-308. It's line 154 if you're looking at the detailed version. That would be under a contracted service.
Okay, I'm trying to get my hands on it here.
Okay.
Being technically challenged at the moment.
If you scroll quickly, there is some color there in the scanned version, so it
So it's under
draws the eye.
budget docs.
Under the budget docs, so under the V2 draft SY22, not the totals only, under the full version, the one that's 29 pages. It's on page 6, line 154. It's, the line item is 10-1200-53-308 0020-00000.
You see the social services highlighted for,
Yes.
and then,
And then under 2113, and that is on page 12.
2119.
19, I'm sorry,
It's line 306.
line 306.
okay. You have another.
District Resource Officer.
You have another one highlighted, page 5, for 78,000.
Page 5.
Was it? Was this page 5?
That was page 6, I believe. That was the contracted service for the social worker.
Right, okay.
Yep. 68.5 of that would be the social worker. 10.3 is other contracted services in that line.
Other contracted services being,
Diana, you want to jump in the type of contracted services you use there?
So that would be for Constellation's behavioral services. We're looking in the 1240 lines, is that accurate?
It's in the 1200s.
Contracted services.
Contracted for, you had 10.3 in there?
District what?
I believe that covers, rather than the behavioral, is that not some of the other pieces that we've done through special ed?
Yeah, that's if it's in the 1200 lines?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I don't have my, okay. So contracted services there are usually for items like if we need to contract for a particular evaluation for a student, if we need to have, we also have another line for vision and hearing. If we have some assessments that are related to that but aren't direct services, those lines cover those expenses.
okay, so it's a kind of a
It's a catch-all for those
catch-all
other
case
pieces.
by case.
Correct, yeah.
Case by case needs, okay.
Those things that come up that don't fit other places.
Okay, so, and then there was some corrections to the other areas.
Yep, so
Added in.
for 1300,
Can you give a page number, please?
yes, I will. So on page 9, 1300 vocational programs, that's being level funded. That was inadvertently left out in version 1.
At the 52,000.
Correct.
This one also reflects the lower increase in the health insurance too. It's already been figured in.
Which was how much of a difference, roughly?
Roughly 3%? We had
Roughly
budgeted for 6?
Yeah, 3% of the, what we were paying already. It wasn't a huge amount. It wasn't an amount that shot out at you.
It wasn't
Probably-
10,000,
Well,
20,000?
It was probably about 15,000, 15 to 20,000 throughout the whole, across the district. But because it's all broken out by where they are, that's where it came from.
So I guess questions on this base budget, besides the two highlighted areas of, that Tim wanted highlighted, the resource officer and the
Social worker.
social worker.
I'll make a comment on those two while you're on there.
Go ahead.
Looking at the revenue projections, how much revenue are going to be down from what we have in this current school year?
Wasn't there some heartbreaking news?
Well, I sent the email yesterday. We have our November 15th estimate. They had told us that the 880,000 or so was a one-time payment. And so they are projecting around $5.6 million for adequacy next year.
Which is $1 million decrease over what we're funded at this year, correct?
Correct, roughly. And we had been told that we had a one-time payment in there. The other difference is due to enrollment numbers. Remember, we run about 2 years behind on numbers, so.
So with $1 million loss of revenue, I'd like to let, and I'm not minimizing either position, the social worker monies and the resource monies, I'd like to let the taxpayers decide if they want to fund those positions. They're an important part of our educational system,
Extremely.
but they're not educational expenses. It's beyond, what we would look at in the black box as far as education. And I hope they pass, but I think it's if they do pass and people complain about the tax rate, the taxpayers authorize us to spend that money for 1 year. The following year, then it would, my vision is it would move back into Fund 10. I don't believe either one of them will fail, but I'd like the taxpayer to make that decision.
See, I take a different opinion. I think for the resource officer, we have basically gone into this agreement with the town, and I would leave that in Fund 10, but I could agree with your argument regarding the psychologist.
Social worker.
Social workers. Maybe not. Because that was funded by a grant, 100%, and now it's going into Fund 10. The resource officer is kind of a different animal, where it's been progressive. At times it's been 75, other times it's 25, other times it's 100%. So I mean,
It's been in there at 100% previously.
Oh, 100%, right. But it rolls in and out. It's something that this town is accustomed with the way that it's run as a grant. But discussion from the other members? Well, maybe we should move on to the Ruth Allen, any updated information?
So as far as additional pieces that we've added, we haven't. You were looking to...
But what Tim was responding to, I guess maybe you could elaborate a little bit more.
Sure.
So you would put in one of the folders, let's see, I gotta find it now, what that was. So I guess maybe if there's more of a breakdown to it, so I can understand it a little bit better, where the difference is. It's just inadequacy add is a big difference at aid.
Okay, all right, so to go through the adequacy payment
Right,
projections, okay, all right.
which is where he's saying that's $1 million shortfall? Well,
Those
difference.
are rough numbers. Okay, let me go back to that for you.
Is it under budget docs? No.
No, it was an email that I
email
sent
yesterday.
yesterday, because
Email.
we just got it yesterday.
So it wasn't uploaded in the folder, so, okay, let me look.
No. Let me go back and grab that. Okay, so probably the biggest piece as far as understanding some of the context of this, as superintendents, we have gone to the state and said, look, this is one of those years where so much has shifted as we are putting our numbers forward. This is based on our October 1, 2020 enrollment count. It also is largely dependent on our free and reduced lunch count. This year, our free and reduced lunch counts across the state are down significantly because of the federal waivers that have been put forward. Everybody receives free lunch this year. And because of that, families have said, well, why do we bother to fill out the paperwork? Because we're getting a free lunch anyway. There's no rush to get in the form. We have been told that they will do an update with actual data at the end of the year. Several districts had requested a specific hold harmless as far as the enrollment number when calculating state aid, because we do have families who did withdraw to go to VLAX who didn't necessarily have to. There's a lot of different variables in where our enrollments have gone. Because of the legislation that's been written, and it's a very strict formula how they can do it, they don't have the option of waiving those for us. Special education and English language learner is based on data submitted last year. Third grade reading is from 2 years prior. It will be recalculated again at the end of this year, because any state testing, state testing didn't happen last spring, and what's been done in the fall was for baseline only. It's not being used for adequacy, so we can't use it in the adequacy formula. When we're comparing it, they keep telling us you can't compare exactly to this year because of the one-time FY21 grants that were in there. And that was additional funding for free and reduced lunch and fiscal capacity aid, both of which were relatively high for Farmington and which we will not be getting again. And so we've had 2 years of additional one-time grants. Last year, it was the $990,000 that was put in more or less for safety infrastructure pieces.
Yeah.
This year, it was the 2 portions that were around the free and reduced lunch and the fiscal capacity. If you take those out, our adequacy funding has remained fairly close, but those one-time payments definitely jump the numbers. So if you look at the attachments, you have,
So I'm looking at the estimated fiscal year 2022.
as of today, or as of yesterday.
So it's 5,605,000,
Correct.
and then minimum in the following neighboring column, minimum first fiscal year 21 was 5.3. No, what is?
So the estimated for next year is 5,605,000 and
Yeah.
change. The minimum for
Fiscal year 21.
for fiscal year '21, if they had gone just on last year's November 15th estimate, our minimum would have been $5,325,000. We got an additional $880,000 above that. And so in this, even though our enrollment has decreased, with the stabilization grant and the other pieces in here, we've actually gone up a smidge, but it looks like a fairly significant hit because we don't have the one-time grant added to it, which is what we keep saying, it's a one-time grant. We don't have any type of guarantee that that's going to come along again. Last year at this time, when we did the projections, I had in there roughly 5 million and change for the projections around budget season, and then we found out that we were getting the additional when we got the October 1 numbers. We don't have, they could come up with something else again next year. We don't have any guarantee of that. So as we look at projections, yes, it's a decrease from what we actually received. It's not a significant change from what was projected last year.
And right now, they're saying there's going to be nothing additional.
That is true. Last year, they also said there would be nothing additional.
They never commit to anything until it happens.
And I know this is an obvious question, but for people at home, where did the additional monies come from and why were they granted?
The additional monies were,
State surplus?
I don't know that surplus is a good word. It was what they put in to offset some of the real deficits that towns were facing because of COVID. Beyond that, I think it was because a large section that we received was the fiscal equity piece that was kind of a makeup.
Because
they
there
don't
was-
call it receiver town anymore, but it was kind of that idea.
It was their way of making up some of the equalization that they were taking away in previous years. They kind of caught up and for that budget, and then afterwards they just made note they don't have I don't think they have the money to actually continue that on because the revenues are down.
State revenues are down as well.
Well, we keep locking the state down. What do you expect?
No argument here.
Okay. So, but based upon the total revenues, we have a shortfall. But as far as the educational adequacy.
Based on what, based on adequacy that we actually received this year, it is a shortfall. Based on our last year's projections at this time, it's comparable. It's not hugely off.
And so how does that affect us budgetarily?
Budgetarily speaking, as we move forward, the board will need to decide if you are looking at this in terms of maintaining a level of programming or aiming for a particular tax impact that may or may not hold as we go forward. Will this, because we did receive those additional monies this year toward the tax rate that was just set, this is going to be seen as a decrease. It is. Functionally, it's a decrease because we received more this year. So,
I think to answer your question, the comment that I heard from the taxpayer during the last budget season was, we don't mind investing in our education, but we want to see a return on our investment. So it isn't a matter of saying, do we want to do programming or hold a tax rate? It's a matter of, how do we fund education? And how do we put those options to the taxpayer to say yay or nay, in my mind. And I'd like to see in our budget process and some of the changes that are being projected, how is this going to impact our children for the better? Because for the taxpayer that's sitting out there, $1 million loss of revenue is $2 in the tax rate. Your bottom line budget that you brought before the board, over the budget we're in now, is $793,000 cheaper. But ending last June, we spent $14,775,570. The fiscal year now that we're in, we're budgeted at $16,102,103. That $16,102,103 on this basic budget will decrease to $15,308,418, which is a decrease of $793. So I mean, basic-wise, we're not bad on those numbers, but I don't want to, I want to balance between tax impact and educational growth. I don't think we need to look at them separately, and that's not what I'm saying when I'm talking about revenues and numbers.
certainly,
No, go ahead.
Just the curricular programming that we're looking at, some of the additional pieces there are directly related to wanting to make sure that we strengthen our programming. We've started quite a bit this year at Henry Wilson in really looking at our ELA, knowing that ELA and math both need to be adjusted within the next year, and knowing that if we're looking at adopting full-scale curricula to try to do both of those in the same budget year is going to be probably $100,000 minimally. And for us to do both of those at the same time, particularly with grades K through 6 and probably through 8, then that means we're asking teachers to change more than one of their core pieces all at once, which is a fairly large shift for teachers to make at once and
Okay.
do well.
But the amount of money you just referred to, $100,000, is it in this current budget?
We have put in, we've put in for one. We've put in $45,000 to $50,000 for curricular adoption under 2210. I'll give you the line number. $45,000 under 2210, 56401. It is on page 16, line number 442.
So that's an increase.
That's an increase for math and reading. Math or reading, we're looking at probably being able to do one of those, not both of those for that. If we were looking at both, that number would at least double.
Okay, could you give me that page and line number again?
It is page 16, line 442. Curriculum adoption, DW is district-wide.
So when you version 2 of the budget, and you've got a revised staffing sheet, are those revised staffing wants included in version 2, or are those additional to?
Those are not included in version 2 as far as the staffing sheet, and those are held separately because you said you did not want them included in the budget yet. You were still looking to see whether, yes, those. You were looking to see whether those would be separate.
I'm looking at the document that says.
Budget committee.
Proposed staffing for Farmington School District?
School year 21 staffing for Farmington School and general fund and grant funded employees by FTE. So there's some proposed.
Okay. So.
There's some proposed increases.
There is a proposed increase of assistant principal there under the numbers. Yes. It is not included in the budget lines here.
But it's in this position.
It's in the
positional
position.
request is in this also.
Yes, in the proposed, yes.
So that-
But it's not in the budgetary
Between
section.
the tech assistant increase, assistant principal, classroom teacher, and half FTE grant bookkeeper. That's all in this.
And the social worker, yes. That is listed on here for staffing.
The social worker is listed in the Fund 10 budget.
It's,
Already in there.
the social worker is listed in the Fund 10 budget. The others came in after this, yes. So I guess my question is, are you looking at the social worker being pulled out to add to that list? Are you looking at that list as part of a warrant article? That's what I didn't feel was clear.
Well, I agree with Tim. I think that if we're going to pull stuff out, put it for the taxpayers, I would agree with that one, to put it in a warrant article, because it was basically funded by a grant. Now we're funding it. Taxpayers feel inclined to pay for it.
Understood.
They've been asked.
Those other four, though?
The other four staff positions, well, those, I don't know if the board wants to take those. I don't know if we're ready to get to that discussion right now. We're going to talk.
I want to sit on those for kind of the week and ask some questions, but I did have something that I want to put out, and it really doesn't matter budgetary-wise. Last year, we cut the assistant principal position at Valley View Community School.
But it was unfilled, and we left it unfilled.
No. Well, there was
Okay, right.
there was
I
a
remember.
position that was,
Yeah, we had some positional shifts, yeah.
yes.
So how is that positional shift that we made working now as far as managing that building? What are some of the downfalls that we're finding by not having an
That's
assistant?
probably a better discussion for non-public.
Okay, then.
Well, what my vision is looking at long-term educational growth. Do we look at hiring an assistant principal, or do we look at hiring an assistant superintendent that can give you a hand in what you need to do and dedicate some of that time to Valley View Community School and kind of get a little bit of balance? That's where I'm trying to balance that, and we can continue the discussion in non-public, but that's where my vision's going. Can we kind of kill two birds with one and a quarter stones? is kind of where I'm going. And I just, we've got to look at where we are educationally, where we're thriving, where we're not. We've got to get where we're not thriving up. And I think we got an awful lot of work to do. And I just think that I don't want to put Band-Aids on. I want to take our bucks and invest them where we're going to get the most bang. And that's just something I'm throwing out for feedback. And we can talk about it in non-public.
Well, while we're on this positional request, I might as well take a couple questions. First one, let's talk about the classroom teacher at Henry Wilson. What is that teacher slated to do that's not getting done now?
Right now, we are looking at another group coming through. Our 5th grade has been small, but as we start to move up through, we will have the need to bring back at least one, if not 2 of the teachers that we lost last year.
Because of, you're saying classroom size?
Low enrollment.
Partly classroom size, but then also partly too with the rotation of certifications once we get up into grades 7 and 8, because the numbers coming up are going to be larger. And so I've gone down to 3 classrooms for 7 and 8. I'm going to need to start getting those back to 4 because I have 4 6th grades now. Collapsing those down is going to be tight.
What about enrollment in other areas where those teachers could move over? Say in 4, 5, and 6? Where are we at with enrollment there? Is that up or down?
The class coming up to 4th grade is going to be larger than what we've had, so we're going to need to shift. I don't know that, I think we're going to need at least one.
So the enrollment in Henry Wilson is increased on every class, or every grade?
It's not increased proportionately in every grade, no. But the class that I have leaving is smaller than what I will have coming in. And I anticipate that if we are fully back with a vaccine, my numbers are going to start going back up again. Because I think a number of those folks who are homeschooling now are going to send kids back to school.
So just for a little bit of history, I think it was about 2 years ago, the prior school board looked at enrollment numbers and cut a teacher at Henry Wilson because of those enrollment numbers. And now those low enrollment numbers are back up to where they were 2 years ago, or ballpark that area.
That class is small, but we have more kids coming up behind that's a larger class.
So what is our average class size in Henry Wilson projected to go to?
Our average class size is probably going to be low 20s, which...
With this teacher or without the teacher?
Without the teacher, we'll definitely be into the 20s. With this teacher, we'll probably be high teens. Again, that's forecasting as best I can because we could have another shift and our numbers may head sideways again. This is a tougher year to project.
Mr. King?
Go ahead, Joel.
But based on the numbers right now, Ms. Vaughn, what's the difference in class size from this year to next if the position's there?
The difference as we're going up into the 6th grade of 4 going into 7th grade with 3 is going to probably increase each class by, let me just double check it for sure. It was going to, if we have any type of restrictions in place, it was going to swell us beyond being able to fit with 3. Let me double check. Our fourth grade is currently 63. Our fifth grade is 55. Sixth grade is 62. So those will remain. Sixth grade is where we've lost some numbers this year with our in and out. So if we have students come back, that class was larger. Going into seventh grade, if our numbers remain the same, it may be roughly 1-for-1 for next year. So it depends upon whether or not we have students come back.
Okay, all right. That's just, I don't like the variable thing. So,
Current numbers, it would stay roughly the same.
Can you just do current number per grade level? I don't care if they're in or out.
Yep. Well, I'm talking about those who've withdrawn to homeschool who may come back. So currently in or out, 56 at third, 63 at fourth.
56 divided by how many classrooms?
56 divided by 4.
Okay.
63 divided by 4
That's what we have now?
at fourth grade. Fifth grade is 55 divided by 3.
So we're talking an average of 14 in a classroom in fourth, which would be what next year?
Which would be roughly the same next year coming up.
And where's the proposal for I'm sorry, can you repeat where the proposal is for the two teachers?
The proposal would be, for at least the one, would be at 7 and 8. And may actually go between the two.
But what's the enrollment in 7 and 8?
7 and 8 right now are in the 60s, as is grade 6. 5th and 6th are where we've had more kids whose parents said we're pulling them out. So we may have the same numbers. And if we do, then we can theoretically stay with our same numbers as far as the teaching staff.
Would you agree with this statement, Ms. Vaughn, that an average classroom size of 14 per classroom is some of the best classroom sizes we've seen in 20 years?
I would say it's been, yeah, it is.
You talking performance-wise, Joel?
I'm talking about the class size, ratio teacher to student.
I mean, from what I just heard for numbers, even if you have 7 and 8, that's going to go to 22 kids. You have other grades which have 55 students with 4 teachers, where if you move one teacher over, you still be below 20. So, depending on...
Once you get into 7 and 8, some of the certifications do shift somewhat.
Yeah,
Not all.
I'm sure. But I guess for me, I mean, certainly I could maybe have some more discussion on it, but it seems like something that's not as an essential thing that we need to put forth on the taxpayer. Something we perceive that would be a benefit, but if our classroom size is not going to be moving around the teachers as needed, it's going to be between 14 and 20, why would that necessitate adding another teacher at this point? I mean, it might be a preferred thing to do, but why would it be a necessity?
It wouldn't necessarily be a have to. I would look at getting someone at that 7th and 8th grade level who is certified in ELA so that we have a strength there as we're looking at shoring up some of our other...
Do we have any people in that building that are certified in those areas?
In English language arts, at this point, we do not.
Do we have people that are working towards that in that building?
Not that I'm aware of.
Do we have staff in other buildings that we could reassign to meet that need from other buildings? If it's a need,
Joel,
we need.
did you?
Go ahead, Joel. Maybe I stepped on something I shouldn't have, I don't know.
I thought it was a burp.
Okay, I thought Joel was saying something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know that it's an easy move, partly because of the differences between the schedules of the two buildings. It's a secondary certification. So, meaning that English language arts, math are certified, social studies, science, 512, and then there are specific certifications within. So.
Mr. King?
Go ahead, Joel.
Mr. King?
Go ahead, Joel.
Oh, sorry. When you asked the question, Ms. Vaughn, my computer froze for a minute. He asked the question, if anybody in the building had that English language arts certification. When you said no one does, did you mean currently in the upper grade levels or in the entire building?
Currently, there is no one single certified in ELA at Henry Wilson.
And how, do you have,
I have certified in math.
That are certified through 8, though?
I have K-8 certified teachers, yes, and they are generalists in all of the core areas, yes. Yes. I'm not saying they're not certified teachers. They are not specifically certified in English language arts.
But according to the state will allow someone with a K-8 to teach English language arts at that upper level.
Yes, they will.
Thank you.
That's a good question.
Mr. King, may I interject?
Go ahead, Matt.
Real quick. Yeah, just to review on the class sizes, I did create a chart a couple of weeks ago when I was looking at making this change. So with the addition of one classroom teacher, my proposal would look at grade 4 having a class size of 18 next year, grade 5 it would be 16, grade 6 would be 18, grade 7 would be 16, and grade 8 would be 15. If we did not put those additions, or the addition, singular classroom teacher, grade 7 would be 21 to 22, and grade 8 would be 20 to 21, according to the current numbers that we have.
Okay.
Just to clarify, if you had any outstanding questions about that.
Could you get that to Ruth Ellen so she can distribute it to the board?
Yep, it has been shared.
Okay.
It might have just got lost in the tons of files and folders we all have.
I will grab it.
Tim, you had something?
On our lower grade levels, what grades are covered by Title I money? Is it K through 6 or K through 8?
K through 8.
Okay. Part of that Title I money can be used for those classifications. If I'm hearing English language, and we've been down in our English scores, is there money within those line items that we can hire this teacher and pay for it with the federal money?
There isn't for this year's allocation. We'll have to see what our allocation is for next year. I do have a position in that grant currently that I'm looking at as a one-year position. Our Title I allocations have gone down some each year because it's also tied to our enrollment and our free and reduced lunch numbers.
So with COVID, we carried over a significant amount of money, correct?
We
like
did.
293,000?
I don't know that it was quite that much. One of those, at least two of those positions this year are interventionist positions. One's at Henry Wilson and one's at Valley View, for that very purpose of boosting where we need to be. One is a math interventionist at Henry Wilson.
Okay.
Another year, we could potentially put in. We have other full-time positions. We have a reading teacher at Henry Wilson that is covered in that grant. We have class size reduction positions at Valley View that are included in that grant that are half-time positions.
I've got a funding concept, but I'll talk about it in non-public
Okay.
on that particular one.
Mr. King,
Go ahead, Joel.
Ruth Ellen, is Henry Wilson still identified at the state level as an elementary school?
It is. Yeah.
What's the minimum, state minimum standard for teacher to student ratio for classrooms?
It's still 20 at the lowest elementary. It can go up to 25 as we look at the upper levels.
Okay.
Can I just hinge back onto a comment Joel made about talking about some of our best class sizes at being 14? Is there data out there that shows the difference in performance between a ideal class size of 14 and 26 somewhere? I mean, you would think there would be.
There's not strong correlation with class size as much as there is with teacher efficacy. And so if you have a stronger teacher but a larger class, you're still going to have better outcomes than you will with a smaller class size, all things being equal.
Moving along to the last item, what you had was tech assistance for 2. You know, this has been an area that basically has been increased quite a bit. I know our tech needs have increased quite a bit, but I am not inclined to maybe go to that extent. I mean, we have a part-time position that I may be inclined to, if we can afford it, to go to a full-time, but to add 1.3, 1.5, 1.7, whatever the number is. I think that the equipment that we purchased for Chromebooks, we purchased those with extended warranties and so forth. So I know there's an installation burden, but as far as the maintenance burden, we've hopefully taken care of most of that through our warranty process, or at least a large degree. And a lot of this new technology that we brought in, you know, hopefully over the next 3 to 4 months, we're over the hurdle and some of the needs will calm down. It's just my feel at this point because we've got, you know, some revenue shortfalls. We've got some things we are going to need to do. And if I'm going to pick and choose, it's not going to be, you know, for me, it's priorities. And we've added staff, we've added a lot of funds in this area, and I think we can add a little bit more and try to basically get everything working the way it should, and hopefully the assistance needs, because we get everything running smoothly, will come down where the staff that we have can handle it. That's just my initial thoughts. But I'm not ready to make a motion, certainly, regarding any of it. The FTE grant bookkeeper, I think that you made a case for that, and that's a part-time position. That's only a $16,000 line item here. And Tim made some comments regarding assistant principal versus assistant superintendent, which is the first time I've heard about it, so maybe a point to discuss. I guess what other things do we have that we would be putting forth to the budget committee? See, we have a base budget, we have some things that we've got a motion to either go warrant article or leave in Fund 10. We've got some positional requests that we're going to need to motion on. There was an update regarding the grant, not the grant, but the capital reserve funds, or trust funds workbook. We go to that. Are there things that we were planning to do that can come out of these line items instead of raising it through taxation? I know, when we go down through this list, are there things here that are in the, to happen this year out of these trust funds?
Kitchen equipment fund may be tapped, as we've had to do warmers for the buildings. The roof projects are not going to hit as much as had been approved. We are agents to expend for
So do we have?
all but the high school.
So if we go to, say, the police, so under the first one, 2001, capital improvement and renovations, it was 95,000. We were going to withdraw 38,000 for Henry Wilson Memorial Roof. Is that still what we're planning to do?
Actually, I think we were, because out of the FSD construction and renovation, you were going to take 119. You could probably take the 65 out of there and just leave that 38 in capital improvements.
Because the Henry Wilson roof was split between two. It was split between the
Between two
capital
accounts.
improvements and renovations and the FSD construction and renovation. So it was 119 and 38. So we could take the full amount just from the FSD construction and renovation. There's 119 that was approved there.
So this list doesn't include where we're plan to take those expenditures from?
Yes, it does.
It's listed. It's listed
So
right
if you
there.
look at,
On the right column.
so if you
Oh, the
look at
far
the
right.
first one,
Yeah.
there's 38,000 for the roof, but there's also another 119,000 for the roof. The 65 could come out of the 119 and not touch the top.
And you might be able to use that one if you want to take generator funds out of there, the top one, capital improvements and renovations, since you're not going to tap it for the 38,000.
Right. Because that can be used for district, it doesn't have to just be used for Henry Wilson.
Well, okay, but the estimated cost, if we chose to sign on a dotted line, is $12,500 for the generator.
12,000 just to purchase the
To
generator.
purchase the
And
generator.
the other one would be move and installation cost.
Correct.
Which
Correct.
could be estimated
It's going to be what,
anywhere from.
12,000?
Yeah,
Quite a lot
it
more,
could be 12 to 25. The original install price was, well, actually, it could be more than that. Yeah, it's one thing we got to assess on electrical far as into the building.
Yeah, that's going to be the X factor.
Can we look at their contractor that they used, Yates,
Yeah, we could certainly ask the question.
and ask them how much if we get that generator here, how much for them to put a grounded pad in and do the installation? What do we
I
need?
mean, that would be contracted to ask, to say, we're looking at this, making a commitment on it. Can you give us an estimate? The original installers to come here. I think that would be probably the best way to handle it as far as an estimate. If we're comfortable with the estimate of the firms, we can basically make a motion to waive the bid policy. But at this point, they're probably the most qualified, as far as them being installing the equipment originally, to correctly give us a cost.
The question is, though, I know, Tim, you had some, because there's certain things we won't need done because you said you'd be able to get certain
Right,
things done. So I'm going to have to
I
actually,
would say ask them, if it's sitting here in a pad, how much to connect it and bring what do we have up to spec.
Yeah, but the pad is a special grounded pad that they have to put under that generator. So you're gonna want, I think Yates,
Just
correct me
spec
if
it.
I'm wrong, Larry, probably Yates the contract to do the pad and the installation.
When the representative from Yates came up, he brought a contractor with him that I assumed that he worked with down at Oyster River before, because he's the one that went through with the guy from Yates about trenching across, putting the pad in, what it would cost to put the pad in.
This was
ground.
recently?
Yeah, well, when I first looked into it,
Okay.
I had them, just to give you
Yeah,
an
we just
idea.
kind of, he
Yeah,
came up.
we may be looking for this for the future,
Right.
so you might as well
So-
look at it now.
Did they give you any numbers?
Not yet.
Okay. So it's already in process, as far as us giving us.
He's just, yeah, I just brought him up and said, this is what we may be looking to do. Can you tell me how much, what it would entail? Because basically, you've got to trench across almost half the school to get to the electrical room. Because the electrical room is basically the
As
back
far
of the
from as we
building,
can
between
get.
the cafeteria and the
We could find a
locker
closer
rooms.
location of the generator?
Well, the generator would be up at the outside of the pole where the portable one is, because the hookup is already there. There's already a hookup there that they could run to, but they still have to run wires over for the core heater in the generator, power to the generator for the startup of it and stuff. But actually, the hookup running into the school is already there. That's why they were talking about putting it right there.
So they basically would be trenching.
Trenching for wiring and stuff
Right,
to the
but they're not
to power
trenching
the
below the building, they're trenching around the building? And then
They
coming
would
in?
have to trench through the parking lot, from the pole through part of the parking lot, over across underneath the walkway through the wall to the building. Because that's where all the transformers and the breakers are for the building.
So would they do the trenching themselves, or would we bring somebody in to do that?
He had somebody come in
to do the trenching,
to get an estimate for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the best way to proceed budgetarily. Not saying that when we get to that, maybe we can find a more cost-effective solution, but if we can get an estimate, then we can plan for that budgetarily, and then when it comes, say, okay, how can we be more cost-effective? Might be able to, we might not, but we need to have at least a solid estimate for basically not worst case, but a reasonable number. I mean, we don't want to plan for 43 when they really think it's 35. If they think it's 35, we'll plan for 35 and try to minimize that when it comes to that, depending on, somebody may come up with a better idea as far as a location or something that might be more cost effective. It may take, a couple looks at it, but we're not in a hurry tomorrow to basically start digging holes.
No.
No.
If they can give us an estimate on the estimated cost, then we can kind of budget for that going forward. And then if we can get that number in the next few weeks, then I don't have any problem making a commitment if the board desires to say, here's a letter of intent to Oyster River that we want to generate, and we fully assess the cost, and barring, the sky falling, we're going to take it when it becomes available.
I can probably get it to you within 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I think then that would be at least, the strokes of that would be at least laid out for groundwork that would go before the budget committee and saying, this is something that we're planning in the future, and it's not really in this budget cycle, but it's.
Well, actually, it would be, because if we're looking at doing this in March or so of '22, March of '21 is in this current year, March of '22 is next year.
So then it would be in this budget cycle, and this is how we were going to handle it.
Yeah.
Whether it's out of capital reserve, which would probably make the most sense to keep the burden down. Because these funds, based upon the savings of the roof, there's more in here than what we expect it to be.
Correct.
Like Brian said.
So I guess my question is, would we want to do a warrant article in this year's budget to the budget committee for $20,000 to deposit that in the safety and security account, which will give us a balance of 70, and the board's agents to expend on that account?
Why wouldn't we just take it out of capital improvements and renovation? It's still going to have 95,000 in it.
Because if you have something break in the building, you can't use your safety and security to pay for it. It's kind of a unique cost on the building that, with heat exchangers and furnaces and everything else, we might need that other capital improvement money in there for something that comes up.
Where is that line, safety and security in the funds?
The bottom.
2020, bottom left.
Okay, yeah.
50,000.
I mean, it's something.
Years. Nothing's ever happened to me. I didn't get into all the drugs. I didn't start stealing, mugging people. It didn't make me do anything different.
I'm okay. I'm okay with that. I just don't want to see, we're in November, between now and February or March, I don't want to see Oyster River say, hey, by the way, Berwick, I got this generator over here for an extra $5,000. You can.
Well, I mean, for management, well, I'll use your point, but trying to manage costs and put forth stuff before the voters. I mean, it sounds like it by the time, but it might be a $50,000 total. It could be 40, but if we gotta spend 25 to get it installed in 12, it's 35, 37. I mean, their total install price at the time was 117, is that the number?
Yeah.
Let's include the
Roughly.
install, so,
Install the testing, everything.
right. So install is a pretty big number on it that's,
Right, and we want to make sure that we don't blow the rest of the system once we fire it up. So there's going
Well,
to
yeah,
potentially
that's-
be some other pieces that
Yeah,
need
there's
to be
testing,
beefed up.
you
And
want-
yeah, I mean, we may have some internal electrical stuff that needs to be updated because it's not current code. They come in and they say, you're gonna put a automatic switch in there, and they're gonna say, this whole panel, you can't do it with, and it's a $15,000 or $20,000 panel. I mean, how much service do we have coming into the high school? Amperage. Do you know how many amperage we have coming in?
Top of my head, I don't know.
400?
480,
It's 480 service?
483 phase.
And we're only bringing in 483 phase, or we're bringing in 208 also?
I believe it's.
Just
yeah.
480?
Yeah.
So you're transforming all your 208 and your 120? I know.
I'm not an electrician.
I know enough to be dangerous.
So, any other warrant articles that we're looking at on top of what the budget requests are as far as the staffing positions?
I mean, we have one that isn't necessarily budgetary right off the bat, but we have been approved for the 2.5% set aside. The legislature is now allowing a 5% set aside. And while I know that you're looking at a contingency, I think it makes sense to put forward to the voters to have that as an option. Doesn't mean that we're going to take that option. But right now, we're approved for 2.5.
Yeah, the law just changed this year, and the only way you get it, you can go from 2.5 to 5 is to actually have a warrant article, and the taxpayers vote on it. It's not monetary, it doesn't cost anything, it just gives you the ability, if you had a year down the road where you had an excessive fund balance and you wanted to hold some of it, you at least would have a little more room to do that if you wanted to.
So at say 16 million,
It's not 2.5% of the,
It's a net appropriation.
it's of the valuation.
It's about 360,000 of where we stand right now.
2.5% is 360? Well, that's 5% is 360.
5% is 360.
Because on the 2.5%, we've been roughly in the $170,000 range. And again, that's one that, as Tim has pointed out, it has a lot of hoops to jump through to have access to that.
Well, they changed that. They changed the statute. You don't have those hoops anymore, as far as I could see in the statute.
I believe there's still a vote.
Yeah,
It still needs to go before the Budget Committee.
Well, I'd like to see, I'd like to
But you're
see
referring
that.
to the
Okay.
expenditure of the 5%?
I'm talking about the expenditure, yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to see that, because when I read the update, that went September, from the 2.5 to the 5%, from what I saw, all those extras were taken out.
Okay.
Well, it's an emergency fund, so it'd have to at least have a public hearing, wouldn't it?
It's a school board contingency fund, right.
Yeah. But you'd still have to have at least a public hearing, I would think.
Yep.
Well, and you'd have to have that for a warrant article. I mean, for a CRF.
Yeah, you'd have to get taxpayer permission, number one. Number two, public hearing to spend it.
I can look more, I can get some more info on that.
So going to the school bus, the 1984 CRF, we approved 50,000 at town meeting. So that brought it to 112?
No, 50 would go on top of the 112.
Okay. Side number is actually 162.
Yes.
Correct.
We were looking at 2 buses in the next cycle, not for this current year, but moving into. We didn't put the mileage on the buses at the end of last year. We are looking at potentially a greater need, say, for a 12-passenger van than a full-size bus right now, although we have a couple buses that haven't handled not being used as much particularly well. So Lynn and I are looking at that. I don't think we'd need 2 next year, probably going to need at least 1. But we have the capital reserve. That was the point of building that up.
So how are we with our capital reserve compared to where we need to be with our future purchases? Is that money that still has to be?
So at 162,000, we could probably do 2 buses out of that, or easily a bus and a 12-passenger van.
But to continue with the cycle, how much would we have to replenish that account? Have we had an average per year?
Before it was 77.
Right, because we were looking at the amount of a bus if we needed to do 2 this year. It's between 77 and 80 for a bus. If we've been replacing 2 at a time the last couple of times that we've done it. At about every couple of years. And so they're roughly, we had been looking at leases. We have finished the lease on the smaller of the buses. We still have 1 bus lease that we're still paying. But if we're purchasing outright, if we do a bus every 2 years, and we would be looking at funding a bus a year, potentially.
How many buses do we have?
We have 9 buses right now. I have more buses than I have drivers.
So we're replacing
So-
on a 10-year cycle?
10 to 12 years.
But if we were to do 2 buses, we have the funds without raising an additional amount.
It would pretty much take the.
Right, it would wipe it
It
out.
would wipe it, but we would have it, yes.
And then we approved the 35,000 for kitchen equipment, so that brings that to like 42,000.
Correct.
So the warmers that you were talking about, if it comes out of there,
That would be probably another 15 or so that would come out of there
so we.
for the warmers. They're not quite 5 each?
No, they were 2,500.
Okay,
Bought
so,
3.
all right.
Okay, so that
So-
line seems to be fine. The special education expendable, we added 50,000, so that would be like a 207 unless there's
Correct.
expenditures out of there?
Correct. And it depends upon the year. I mean, the 207 could be 2 out-of-district placements. It might be more than that. But
And-
that's for something we weren't anticipating as far as our expenditures there.
And on the technological fund, there's 119,000 there, 120,000.
Correct.
Now, some of the upgrades that you're put forth,
The infrastructure upgrades, anything that is hardware related can come out of that. It can't be used for personnel, but certainly any of those.
right, but some of those upgrades,
Yes.
you've put in those additional revenues.
Yep. Yep, that could come here, absolutely.
If we needed something to come out of those.
Yep, it could.
Yeah, I don't see us spending any of that.
Do we
And in fact,
have
that.
any, I mean, between the CARES Act funding and that additional 158.8 or 158,000, do we have other things that we need differently than what's in the line items proposed, and some of those technology can come out of here?
Potentially. I mean, we have to get the 158 obligated pretty quickly. The technology pieces could certainly come out of here. The pieces that have already been purchased and will be in district this week probably should go into the 158 because that's something we know that we've expended, have in district, and we don't have to play with that December 30 deadline.
Those would be,
Those would be the Chromebooks that are coming in this week.
so we're going to make that decision next week, or we need to make it this week? Or it doesn't matter?
As far as what goes in there, I mean, we can take anything that has been already purchased and expensed and put toward that 158,000, which I think makes sense to do, and then we'll look and see what's left that we would then need to order. If we're going to order things against that, we need to do it quickly because we have to have it in-house, in use by December 30 to be able to put it toward that grant.
I think one thing that reminds me, I think, Brian, you were supposed to send around some information on those iron irons, those air, the air.
That was, I thought that went in last week while we were talking.
You put it in last week's?
He put it in the folder last week while
Did
we
you
were.
hear anything did you talk to Siemens about those two?
Yeah, they just sent a thing that I gotta look up.
Okay.
They have something that's similar.
Okay.
They can go into unit ends too.
All right, so we'll
So
pull
when did
that.
you put it in the folder?
I think it was last week.
I thought he put it in last week.
Last week, during the meeting or after?
Might have been during.
I think it was during.
Back and look.
I didn't know to go look there. So either I didn't listen to you when you told me to go there and I didn't listen, or you didn't tell me. Because I know you didn't send me an email. Well,
No, there was not a separate
Right,
email.
It's not.
I'll look at that later tonight. So going back to the budget, we have the budget for Fund 10 and the positions that are requested here, and potentially a few warrant articles for the two positions. Board's going to make a decision on the SRO and the social worker, and any other warrant articles. There might be one for a generator. Would there be any other ones?
I'd like to look at permission to do the LED lighting,
Oh, that's right.
and then I'd like to look at Larry's list to see if we want to ask permission to do anything from that list as well.
But I think the lighting, if we were going to put that for the voters, we should structure it so that the, no cost, no increase to the taxpayers, and it'd be paid through the savings over whatever period it is. It could be 8 to 10 years.
Maybe that's
You
what.
just forwarded that to me, I see that.
You did?
Or maybe Larry did.
I just sent you one.
What? Yeah, I forgot from Larry.
Okay. And I have the-
Maintenance-wise, anything else critical, expensive?
I've got a thing I'd like to send to you for the next meeting to look through. Proposal for some upgrades to the heating system down at Henry Wilson. to,
Is that a dual boiler system or just one boiler?
it's a dual boiler. Well, right now, they have no setback controls on them or anything, so they run continuous. It's basically, the boilers here at Valley View and the high school have a setback where if the temperature reaches a certain time outside, they'll just stay off. Henry Wilson has nothing to do with that, so they continuously run no matter what the temperature is outside.
So if there's no need for heat calling from the rooms?
If the temperature starts dropping down in the boiler, yes, they'll come on anyways unless we shut them off. So as the temperature drops in the boiler, the water temperature, as it drops, even if it's hot outside, it's circulating, so it's still cooling. It will call for heat again on the boiler to keep it up to temperature.
Okay, so if it's a two-boiler system, are they running different areas or are they just running it redundant?
Redundant. And depending on what the temperature is, what they're calling for heat, they could be running at the same time. There's no alternating between them. So there's a proposal that I have for energy savings to not only put the setbacks, put the controls on for the boilers, but to control the pumps, which the newer pumps never had the hookups for a setback, where if the temperature, you can set a temperature so that if it reaches, say, 50 degrees outside, the circulator pumps will shut down automatically. And then if this is in conjunction with the boilers, they'll shut down too.
Okay, so you're going to get that to us for this?
Yeah, I've got an estimate for it from.
Okay.
And it's also an upgrade to the panels that are obsolete there, so, that we talked about before. So that these would control these systems.
And what's the age of the boilers?
They were new. I think one was put in 2003 and one was 2007, I believe. They've been changed out.
And they're in the opinion that it makes sense to add these controls to these boilers?
Yeah.
And not replace them?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it'd be good to look at.
Okay.
Wouldn't that ultimately save us?
It'll
a lot of
be
money
energy
in
savings
energy,
too, and
yeah.
I think, off the top of my head, I think the cost is around $25,000.
Well, did it have estimated savings?
They were supposed to be putting something together for estimated savings too.
Okay. Good. Good.
That's the biggest thing.
And that could also be in the CRF if we needed it to be.
And that we are agents to expend.
Correct.
Right, the trust fund for the top one, which was
There's only one that you're not.
Yeah, the only one we aren't is the one for the high school.
Yeah.
and that's the 2006
Correct.
construction renovation.
Yep.
There's 440,000 of that, but we're taking out 127,000.
127,650.
650.
Yeah.
So that'll go down to 300,000.
That's the high school fund, and we'd be funding Henry Wilson, so we'd have to take it out of one of the other accounts.
Well, and
Right,
because the
capital improvement and renovation account, which is 95 in it.
Right. And with a warrant article and permission, the high school would be the other place the generator could come out of with warrant permission because it would be installed here. But as we're not agents to expend, it would require the warrant.
So no other warrant articles that anybody can see other than what we've discussed tonight?
The only one that comes to mind is when we voted to put the Little Red Schoolhouse, right?
Yes.
On a historic register. I mean, I said there, and I still believe, I think that if we're going to keep this building and potentially rehab it, that we should get an estimate for the cost to do that, to bring that building up to occupancy and put it before the voters to see if they want to expend the funds to renovate that building. I mean, this board voted to put it on historic register, and if we're going to keep it as a school building, we either gotta fix it or get rid of it, because doing what we've been doing, which is nothing, is in 5 years, you're gonna be tearing it down, or less. So to me, one thought I had was to get somebody to give us an estimate, a solid estimate of what it takes to bring that building up to usable. And unfortunately, it starts underneath the building. Based upon what I saw, the significant liability there. I mean, you walk through the door, it doesn't seem that bad. But I think we need a solid estimate of what it's going to take to rehab that building and put it for the voters. Because if the number's say the number's $150,000. If the taxpayers think that that's what they want to do, I'm all for it. But they may decide that that's not where they want to spend their money. And then the board can decide to not carry the building forward. I mean, we can't just say, oh, we want to keep it, we want to preserve it, without a plan to basically maintain it or bring it up to usable status. I mean, so for me, I think that was one of the things that I was considering for a warrant article. And it would really be asking the Farmington residents, do they want to maintain this as a historical school building? And if so, this is the estimated cost that will cost to bring that building up to usable for the school and the community. And it's up to them. That was a thought, but, and that could be a pretty good number. It could be anywhere from $150,000 to $250,000. I mean, but we can't just say, oh, we're gonna keep and fix it, and then just start spending money, 50 here, 100 there, out of our funds, to fix it when we haven't asked the taxpayer what they wanna do with it.
So how do we get that pricing? And when do we get it?
Originally, I was thinking we would get an outside contractor to get the estimates together. I mean, our staff is busy. I mean, ideally, we need to get a construction professional to get together some solid estimates. Total those estimates and say, this is the number. Not saying that we would use that number, but if that's gonna catch the majority of the cost. What it needs, this is what it needs, this is what the costs are, this is the total. And if the voters decide that's what they want to do, then if I'm sitting here, we're going to make a plan to improve it, and that's the budget. But it needs to be complete. So if it ends up being a little bit over, a little bit under, that's the way it kind of goes as reconstruction projects. But you got to have a solid number to put forth to somebody to say, yeah, we want to spend $200,000 to rehab this building of historic nature and use it. Because right now, it's just falling into the dirt.
As we currently have contractors on site, do you want us to reach out to be looking at estimates? Do you have other plans for that?
No, like I said, I think we need to have kind of an outside consultant to say, we got to spend a couple $1,000s to say, get solid estimates, not this, because when you look at it and got to bring this up to code, you're going to need to get some expertise.
So we're good.
And we need to get, it's one thing just go start this guy and that guy. We need to have a solid construction person to pull together an estimate.
So Fund 10 has to be at the Budget Committee for December 1st. Do our warrant articles normally follow that date, or are we having everything there on the 1st?
Typically, on the 1st, we give them the budget binder. The warrant articles are roughly sketched in the presentation that we give, which would be the 9th, and then they are solidified for January.
Yeah. If we have a list and we have say this is a list of the warrant articles that we're considering, and these are the reasons why, we're going to try to get them finalized in the next few weeks. After the 9th. Because some of those may come on, some of them may go off. The board may say, we're not going to pursue that.
And that's typical.
Yeah.
So we're under the gun on time limits as far as putting together costs and having those numbers in a warrant article to the Budget Committee. So do we make a motion authorizing somebody to engage in contracted services, or how do we take this to the next step without losing another meeting?
And
I don't know if we're going to be able to in this meeting.
And I think what you
maybe,
would
but-
do for the presentation on the 9th of December would be to say, we are looking to get figures for, this is under consideration. The warrant articles don't have to be solidified until early January. It would give you some more time, and at least tell them that you're looking at the Little Red Schoolhouse.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think at our next meeting, we need to make probably a final decision on his positional requests and any expenditures on Fund 10. And maybe we can make a decision if we, regarding some improvements that Larry wants to make, but that, if that comes forth, that would basically potentially be expenditures out of capital reserve that may not have a tax impact. But all this stuff has a tax impact.
So, on the Fund 10 budget, because of the format we're using, I'm seeing, I'll give you an example on page 1, 2150, speech cert. Oh, that's probably a bad example. 2210, instruction and curriculum development services, we're seeing an increase of 20% in that budget.
And that is largely because if you're looking at 2210, that's the 45,000 that we've included for the curriculum adoption.
Okay, so if we see increases above 5% in a budget line, can we get bullet notes on what that money is going towards?
Sure.
For the next meeting? Because it's, another example is there's a line item, 2,900, other support services, with a 66% increase.
So you're looking at that on the summaries page.
Yeah, I'm looking at I'm on page.
Summaries page.
Okay, because on the detail, you have those explanations for the individual line items. I can give you bullets separate from this. I can dump this into a spreadsheet with it, but I can't put notes on this particular printout.
I mean, maybe the only thing is maybe it makes sense to split those out like this.
Okay, so you're not looking at these notes, you want these notes transferred onto the summary page.
Well, tonight's folder on version 2, I don't have a printed Fund 10 balance sheet. All I have is a V2 drafts, school year 22. Budget documents I'm looking at is that, the summary, the 32-page summary, revised staffing, estimates, and budget requests.
So that's updated.
The one that is the V2, S year 22, where there are increases, there are, for the individual line items, there are notes there. It doesn't have it doesn't say for 2210, this is the increase, but under 2210, on that one line that is curriculum adoption district-wide, there is a note, there are 2 programs, Reading Wonders for English Language Arts and Everyday Math, that are up for renewal. We need to update ELA and math program in K-8, but want to cap this at around 40,000. We're still in the process of deciding.
And that's in the last week's folder for budget docs?
That's in what you were given this week as well. Those notes are in
What?
the
I don't have that.
I don't see it. I'm looking at the folder. There's only 3 things in the budget doc folder. There's the SR budget, SY 22 revised staffing, and budget requests.
It was in there.
I mean, huh?
Well,
So maybe it.
Cheryl
or
printed
no, it's
this?
all connected. If you go,
Okay, yes. So the first
all in
the
one
first
folder.
page, it was scanned this way. So the first 2 pages are the summary. The next pages behind that are they got scanned together as one document. I apologize.
So it's one time, yeah, so it's basically further down in that document.
So you have the first 2 pages are essentially your cover sheet. And then page 3 of that, as you scroll in, is page 1 of 29. I apologize.
I'll leave it at that. I didn't realize the Fund 10 was in there. I'll leave it
Yep.
at that, and then if I have any questions, I'll ask them next week.
I mean, I'm happy to break it out separately for you.
and a lot of them
Okay.
you'll see too are A lot of the numbers that go up are retirement figures.
Yep.
For obvious reasons, so.
I think we need to capture those numbers before a budget committee presentation on, you know, what does that 3% insurance cost us? What are our retirement costing us? We need to see those numbers.
I have that
I mean,
spreadsheet.
another thing that Tim just mentioned about when we have those increases, and, you know, yeah, line items are there, but those questions are just going to get, a lot of those questions are going to get re-asked by budget committee members.
Of course.
They're going to say, hey, why is this up 23%? Explain it to me.
So, and when I asked the budget committee at their last meeting what they were looking for from the budget presentation, because we've given them binders with the breakouts by department, and that was something that you weren't looking for, but they said they still wanted what they had seen. So I will still do that, and I can have that for you for next week so that you will see what would go forward to the budget committee if that's what you're looking for. Do you want those electronically or in a binder?
I don't.
Electronically for me.
Yeah, electronically is fine with me.
Okay.
And I don't, as far as your presentation, I'm just kind of looking for a summary of what you're planning to present for information at the summary, so that if we see something to add or whatever, we're just going to put it out.
And one of the things too, I know that the board has, this is the board's budget that is going forward to the budget committee. In the past, the board has directed me to present that budget, and I will continue to do so if that's what you want to do. I know Oyster River and a lot of other places, the board presents the budget to the budget committee. So, however, I can continue to do as I have done.
I'd prefer you to present to the budget
Okay.
committee as you have. I think that relationship is important. Obviously.
I don't disagree.
We've got a member, sitting on the board. But I think that there's nobody in the district that knows the ins and outs better than you, and I think you belong in that chair. Glad to help you with any questions that they have, or deflect, or whatever we need to do, but I think you belong in that chair.
I assume Brian's going to be there?
I'll be right next door.
Okay. And I have no problem being there also. I'm tentatively planning to be there, because, as chair, I think I need to be there to represent the board. I mean, Tim represents the board, but, I can at least, if there's a question, I can at least maybe fill in some answers as far as explaining some stuff of why we got to where we were as a group. So I have no problem being there, but I think, I think you should continue to present with Brian, and I'll be there as, backup or just another spectator.
Okay. That works.
And those hearings are scheduled, I believe, 6 o'clock, which is out of their norm, which is normally 7.
Correct.
And that's on December
9th is the presentation, and that you have the whole calendar.
Yeah. Yeah. I try not to plan too far ahead, so.
Okay, well.
So in the next couple of weeks, I don't worry about it. And next on the budget, we have non-negotiated.
That was that sheet with all this right there. That one.
This.
Right. That's a summary sheet that you had asked for.
Right, regarding.
By department, but if you go into the other folder, it's broken down by person and by total costs, and I've broken it down.
Right.
I wanted to give it to you 6 ways from Sunday, so you could, because
So
you
here,
weren't sure how
we're
you wanted
looking
to look
at,
at it.
as far as considering pay raises for non-negotiated staff.
Right.
The
Non-union.
Non-union. You have that as 1 through 6, or 1.5 through 6%. And that is something the board's going to need to determine how much they feel that, where they want to be, as far as one board member's might be perspective may be what the taxpayer can afford, and another board member's might be what the staff deserves. And either way, the board needs to have a consensus, I think, of what we want to set aside for potential raises to be determined after a budgetary.
Right now, what you have as a placeholder in this budget is 2%. And again, if you're.
So currently, we have 2% number for all those people.
Correct.
That are not in bargaining units would be $38,654.
Correct.
So we have it now.
Correct.
Which.
And those
is
increases
how
are
many-
on salary.
Right.
Does that increase include FICA
benefits?
as well?
That is salary only.
But as you look at the breakout for individuals,
Yeah, if you go into
retirement and
the-
FICA is included in
Our
those
other
sheets.
doc folders,
Sensitive
So can you
docs.
update this to show what that's going to be, or is that a variable amount? I guess it would be
It'd be a variable amount. It's broken down a little more, it's broken a lot more down on
right.
those.
I went
other
through that
numbers.
roughly and looked at it, so.
So by individual, it gives you those other pieces. This is salary only.
Some of these positions have,
Some of them are part-time, and they're not,
right, and some of them have
not retirement.
New Hampshire retirement requirements.
Right, and the retirement, and the,
Some have lower retirement.
right, retirement is
too.
not at the same rate for everyone.
Okay, that's going to take some study.
Yeah.
It's a lot of info. You wanted info.
I'll sit through it. Because depending on how that shakes out, there's probably a relatively common number there as far as to capture the benefits to go along with that. I can look at a couple scenarios.
Your administrators are going to be where retirement is most variable because it depends upon, for instance, my retirement is at a lower amount than, say, Misty or Diana because they categorize us differently.
Or mine.
Or yours.
So we can give you a lower raise because you already make up for it in retirement, right?
No, my retirement's lower. I'm a better deal. No.
You're better. Okay.
Just kidding. They're worth their weight in gold.
So, anything else for budget from the other members?
I'd like to see a recommendation at our next meeting from the superintendent, Brian, on what that pool number should be and why. I mean, you guys, you folks are the ones that know your personnel, you know who go the extra mile. You've got something in the back of your concept of your mind on what you're gonna value that salary. I'd like to hear your number.
No, I would agree with
Instead
that.
of me pulling a number out of the,
You mean like pick a lane on that one?
can you give us a best estimate that if people,
I mean, in Ruth Ellen's case, these are her people and people's people that are not in collective bargaining agreements. And I'm sure, Ruth Ellen, you can quickly go through there and say, this is where I feel these people would be if I'm going to come to the board to solidify recommendations or get recommendations approved, agreed upon, whatever term you want to put. So you would come up with a number. And I think that's what Tim's looking for, and I would agree.
Okay.
Because we may disagree a little bit here and then, but chances are,
I mean, and at this
we may take
point,
that number and say, okay, we're going to shift it this way or that way.
at this point, you're not looking by individuals, you're just looking at what's the pool.
I think your individual thoughts will come up to a pool number that we will consider and it maybe adjust the total. You follow my thinking?
you're gonna have to have an idea of who's gonna get what in order to get to that number. And again, we might.
I mean, and I would
adjust
do
it,
that, but I mean, whether or not, okay, all right, we'll leave that there for right now.
And if you mess up, we take it out of your raise.
I'm fully aware of that.
Okay.
You know, it's got to start somewhere. And
Understood.
so might as well start with the person that has the most knowledge based upon the individual contributions of the staff. And to say, okay, and we can agree, we can disagree, but in essence, you're going to have a line that looks like this. And then potentially say, we can't afford that, let's go this way, or we can't afford that, or we want to go a little bit more.
And use your building principles as guidelines for some of the folks that are non-union in their building that they know well. If you had to give so-and-so a raise, what would it be? Or what wouldn't it be, based on
We'll
performance?
be having discussions.
Right, and next on our agenda is next meeting, which is
Next Monday.
23rd.
Monday, 23rd.
It's in a week. Hey, look at that. Time flies when you're having fun. And the school schedule for that week,
We are with students on Monday, parent conferences on Tuesday, and
The rest of the week
schools are closed Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to students and teachers. Support staff are typically in Wednesday unless they take the day off.
support staff being,
Secretaries, IT, administrators, custodians.
so Larry's only working 2 shifts on Wednesday?
Instead of 3.
That's why they call it a holiday.
Okay, and we got manifest signing, anything else for public session? It's only 12 past 10. You guys aren't getting tired yet, are you? Not hearing anything, I'd like to thank everyone for attending and watching, and I'll make a motion to go into non-public session under RSA 91A32, A, B, and C personnel.
Second.
So we're going to do personnel first, or?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I don't know if Ruth Ellen has something.